Live on stage, the sound
of Orlando.
So, is they ready?
Yes.
The sound
of Orlando.
You know?
What is going on, party people? What is going on? This is the Soul Show. We affectionately call that because the Sound of Orlando show sometimes is too big to fit in what we're trying to say. But man, let me tell you something, man. It is all about the Sound of Orlando show. It is all about our city, our story, and our motherfucking sound. You know what time it is, man, because when we talk about the Sound of Orlando, we're talking about everything that encompasses a story. You know, some of these people that we talk to, we grew up with, that live here, some of the people that we talk about on a day-to-day basis, you know, grew up elsewhere, but we are all family. This thing of ours is called hip-hop for a reason. And, you know, it's beautiful when you could get people that may not have known each other or grew up with each other, and you can actually sit there and carry a conversation with them that doesn't require or have judgment in it, you know, some sort of skepticism, ready to argue with them, you know, disagreeing, just to be a dickhead, you know, like all of these things that normally would put you in a class of being a jerk in other situations. This show is relying on your story. All of my peoples in Orlando, you got a story to tell. It is valuable. It's worth listening to. We've heard from New York. We've heard from Atlanta. We've heard from California. But nobody's telling our story. We need a show in which our voice, our representation is paramount. When you look at our city, there's not a bunch of places where they're telling our story. It's as if they don't even care. We're, you know, the people that live here, grew up here, contribute here, we're treated as tourists. Like we don't live here. What the hell is wrong with that picture? Something's got to change. I'm not the answer. I'm a part of the answer. It is all our responsibilities to do what we need to do as a community, as a city. And this model is not just about here. It's for any place that feels like they got no fucking voice, like nobody's speaking for them or to them. You know, we need that space. We need to grow with each other. We need to hear how things have developed over time. How did we get here? How did we get here where we're being fed only corporate interests, and you rarely hear us in the news unless the news is bad? I mean, this is real talk. This is real questions that I have as far as us having some sort of you know, platform and voice in the city. I tell people all the time, the show is not about me. It's bigger than me. It's about our city. It's about where the hell we come from as a people, what we plan to do right now, and where the fuck are we going? And all of these things are true to power. Truth to power, okay? If we don't have something like this in existence, a lot of people are going to die and take all of these stories to the grave, and nobody will know what these people meant to our city. So salute to my entire city right now. Orlando, this is for you guys. I tell people all the time, I didn't want to do a show. I still don't want to do a show. And I know this is why this is the right thing to do, because we need it. And I just so happen to be fed up enough that this needs to happen. So salute to my city. Salute to all the people out there. If you want to be a part of this platform and advertise your services, your brand, you're from the city, you're not from the city, please hit us up at thesoulshow@gmail.com. If you have any questions, hit us up directly. We're about our city. If you're a local brand trying to support our city, please get in contact with us. We want your partnership, because partnerships are everything when it comes to building a new type of infrastructure for our city, okay? This is what we're talking about right now. So now let's get to this thing of ours called hip hop. My next guest coming on tonight represents all of these things. We were introduced to him through third base, you know, and hearing his voice and doing a lot of, you know, funny things. I mean, third base was just one of the great classic groups of our hip hop story, and their skits, their intros. I mean, the production, insane. He got to work with Prince Paul on a project called Mr. Funk City. You know, he's been signed to Def Jam. You know, like a lot of the things that he's done in his journey are part of our story, and they're designed to learn from and to understand that not everything that people do as artists has been easy for them. There's a journey there. There's a story that we can all relate to. So without further ado, let me bring on my brother from another mother, representing New York City, the one and only Don Newkirk.
What's up?
Let's go. Let's go, my brother.
Louis, what's good, man? How you doing, baby?
Man, awesome, man. Welcome to the show, man. I'm so honored to have you on tonight. You're a part of this thing of ours called hip hop, and your story needs to be, you know, told. And we are so, you know, like I said, we benefit by talking to each other about our story, because our story has so many tentacles. You know, you never realize how much of a family you are with people until you talk to strangers.
Yeah, that's a real thing. That's a
real
thing.
And so this is one of those moments, hopefully, as we go through the show, where we're just gonna put it out there. We're just gonna talk to each other. These two brothers having a drink, you know, and talking about life,
right?
And this thing of ours called hip hop. So before we get started, I want you to kind of talk about how'd you get into hip hop, and what.
Oh man,
what drew you in? And like a lot of things, you know, dealing with purpose in life, sometimes you go in one way and you come out the other, you know. So talk about how you went in and what drew you to hip hop.
Wow, that's a loaded question, bro.
Well, we're loading them up tonight, brother.
Let's load them up, baby. Let's load them up. I was fortunate, man. I was fortunate enough to be raised in New York, born in Harlem, came up in the Bronx, and you know, I was there at the birth. I was there when, like, you know, Bam used to be in the parks, and Theodore and the Gods used to be in the park, man. And even on my block, we had a DJ called Star Child, and he was down with Bam, so. He used to do,
shout out to Star Child. Let's go.
Shout out to Star Child, wherever you at, baby. He used to, you know, come out with the set and set up in the neighborhood with his records and all. And you know, so I was a little kid out there, man, when it first started, man. I used to sneak out the house, and I remember one time I went to Bronx River on the low and didn't tell nobody, and snuck into, like, you know, the projects, and went to Bronx River and checked out this Bam jam when he was out in the park and everything with Zulu Nation. So, you know, I'm definitely blessed and fortunate to have been right there at the birth of it all. You know what I mean? Just like sitting right there before the records, before deals and all of that. You know what I mean? I was right there.
So, well, let me stop you right there, because let's explore that. Because I had Charlie Chase on, and you know, he was, to your point, he was at the very beginning,
right there.
But this fascinates me, because we're older now, and we see kind of the similarities in artists and their new sound and their new way of thinking.
Right.
What was it like for you back then, and sitting down, or you know, just being in the thick of things in the Bronx, and hearing all of that for the first time? What was that like for you? Regard?
It was mind blowing, first of all, and fascinating and fun. You know what I mean? It was like something that we had that was just ours. You know, as youth. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was something that we had. Like it was one thing to be in the house with your moms or your pops, and you spin their records when they're not home, or whatever records they let you play or whatever. But to be able to go outside and have your peers set up in the park with these big ass speakers, and everybody could just jam and dance and congregate. You know what I mean? There was nothing
Right.
like it. It was strictly for us, and it was strictly something that was created by us and came from us. You know what I mean? So
Right.
as it started to progress and cats started to grab the mic, and the birth of the MC came about, from
Right.
just rocking the park. They used to just rock the park first, you know what I
Right.
mean, and keep the crowd going. And from there, you started getting MCs. Now you had the MC and the DJ, and then you had the crews, because you had the Zulu Nation, you had Gestapo, you had all these crews and everything. So it was amazing, bros. I feel so fortunate to be able to have come up in that era. You know what I mean? Like, to see, it's like I grew up with somebody,
Right.
that's not physical. So
I tell people all the time, and and you hear this saying all the time. You could have been anywhere else in the world,
oh yeah,
but you're here. I always feel like when it comes to this thing called hip hop, it's almost, if not the equivalent of a race or a culture
right,
of
right.
people.
It's a tribe.
It's a tribe,
It's a culture.
and
Yeah,
right. You hear this when people say I'm proud to be Puerto Rican or I'm proud to be black.
right,
Like, I've always found myself saying I'm proud to be hip hop because I
right,
know
right,
what that was like going
right,
into places and being shunned because you listen to hip hop.
right,
Being categorized as ghetto or street shit, or like my mom would say back in the days, throw that jungle music off.
oh yeah,
Uh,
oh yeah,
because it's such a special language
yes,
and vibration and frequency that for people that don't get it, you don't even have to decide whether they're in or out. Like, that's not your call. Like, it's just you either get it or you don't. You either
right,
us or you're not. Like,
right,
and I can't even imagine what that was like growing up at the birthplace of it and
right,
feeling like, okay, I don't know what this is. I don't know what it's going to turn into,
right. But it
but
feels
this
good.
shit is dope. This shit is
Right,
dope.
right. Dude,
So,
I remember being in the apartment, man, on a nice sunny Saturday afternoon or something, and you would hear that music out the window, and then you would hear them just turning it on. You hear them speakers start coming up, and you hear that thump. You'd be like, "Oh!" You throw on your Adidas or your Pumas or whatever you was wearing, and get out the house. You know what I mean? Because you had to go and follow
right,
the. A lot of times you didn't even know where the jams were. You followed the sound to the
right,
jam, literally. Like
right,
you'd be like, "I think it's around this corner." You know what I mean? And that was a whole nother thing. It was like a treasure hunt. And then you get there and you find the jam, and everybody's outside in the park getting it in. And you're like, "Oh, we here. Let's go." Oh man, we need to do that
wow,
again. That's what's missing in hip hop, man. We don't have that. You know what I mean?
right. And you said something. We early in the show, and he's already dropping bombs already. Um, we don't have that because the focus is not on that. The
Right,
focus is not on the culture. The focus is on material things or meaningless things, money.
right,
Um, just being obnoxious sex addicts.
right,
Just being on drugs, just drinking. That everything that you're talking about would require a freedom of not having to be like that.
right,
Whereas we're not worried about, oh, let's go grab these bitches, or let's let's
right.
let's just get this money that we can actually party together, and it just be that, like it was when we was kids. Like, we
Yeah,
just wanted to be around,
yeah,
even if we didn't know what we were doing. Like,
right,
even if
right.
we weren't involved, we just wanted to be there.
Yeah, we just wanted to soak up the vibe, man. That's all,
Right,
you
right.
know what I mean?
So continue, my brother.
Okay. So yeah, so that I had that fortune, um, of growing up hip hop. You know what I mean? No pun
Right,
intended, but
right,
literally. And then
right.
when I got to like my formative years and in the teen years, what's up, Stephanie? Got a shout out, Steph in the chat. We good.
Yes,
That's the homie.
yes.
You know what I mean? Kevin, all right, cool. Let me not get distracted by the chat. But yeah, man.
Yes.
In my formative years, I went to high school and junior high. My last year, junior high and high school, I switched and went to Amityville. You know what I
Right,
mean? I had a misfortune where I lost my mom early in life, so I had to go live with Pop Dukes, and he was in Amityville. So
right.
that put me in. That was culture shock, straight up.
Okay, okay. Stop right there.
Yeah,
I hate to do it. He said Amityville, and I'm scrolling, and I find the original dude behind the Amityville horror
yeah, man.
movie,
Yeah, man.
died in prison.
Oh, for
So
real? Did he
yeah,
really?
he died. He
Oh,
just
wow.
died today.
Today?
69 years old
Yo, that's
today.
crazy. I'm not even gonna get into the whole aspect
Right,
of like
right, right, right.
he's
So
69 and then I'm a Cancer, so I'm 69. He died today. I'm from Amityville. He did the Amityville horror. That's some trippy, spooky old
yeah, that's
craziness.
crazy. That's
Yeah, that's
crazy.
wild right there.
It's
That's wild.
crazy.
That's
I mean, I was so young when I seen that movie. And shout out to all my '80s babies because
right.
we were all exposed to The Exorcist, the
Yeah.
Amityville Horror, all these crazy ass fucking Damien, The Omen,
Nuts.
and all of
Nuts.
that shit. I mean, those are some weird, crazy. I don't think horror movies could ever fuck with any of that anyway. But
Yeah.
I never knew that the Amityville horror story was actually real.
Yeah, it was real, man. And we went all my Amity villains in the chat. We went to school literally around the corner from that house. Like we could walk to it from our high school. You know what I
Right.
mean?
That's
So yeah,
crazy.
that was a trip. And
Wow.
Amityville was a trip for me because it was real suburban, and I'm coming from this urban, frame. And so
Right.
I get there and I'm thinking everybody's square and like I'm like, oh my God, man, these dudes don't know nothing and this, that, and the third. Wrong, you know.
Shout out to Long Island.
Strong
Strong
Island
Island.
is game, baby. Strong Island is no game. You hear me? Cats was thorough, maybe more thorough. Because what it was is that everybody, like all the parents from the roughest parts of different boroughs, like Brooklyn and Queens, and they was all trying to get a better life for their kids. So at
Right.
any chance they had, they escaped to the suburbs and went to Amityville. But the kids still had the hood in them. So when I went to the school, one of the first people I met was my man Charles Lane. Shout out Charlie Boo. And he introduced me to Paul because I was sitting in class and I'm like, yo, who's this dude over there? He had a sweatshirt on with iron-on letters that said DJ Paul, which to me was the most normal name I'd ever heard because I'm coming from Grand Wizard Theodore, Grandmaster Flash. I was Kid Wonder. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, DJ Paul, like, what is that? So I asked my man, like, yo, what's up with dude? He's like, nah, son, dude is the illest DJ in Abbeville. Trust me. And that's how I met Paul. I went to introduce myself, like, yo, son, what's up? My name is Wonder. And Paul, in his traditional Paul fashion, just kind of looked up at me like, yeah, okay. Like, who's this guy? You know what I mean? Like, and you know what I mean? Like, whatever. I'm like, I heard you DJ, son. And we ended up,
Right.
he came over to the crib and we had a friendly little DJ battle and stuff. And I was like, oh, this dude's ill. You know what I mean? Like, this dude could really spin. Like, he's actual. And then I started meeting all the other cats.
Stop right there. Stop
Yeah.
right there because this is for those that don't know how hip hop works. We normally meet and greet back in those days with, oh, where you do that? All right, let's battle.
That's exactly how it was.
Right, like I gotta see what you're doing over
I'm
here.
like, yo, I heard you DJ, man. And he was just like, yeah, like whatever. Dude. Like, Paul is so ill, man. He's still the same today. And I was like, word, yeah, I got equipment, bro. I got the 80. I was wild, and I had the drum machine. My brother really got me started in music because he was buying gear early. He bought like a Moog synthesizer. He bought a Roland TR-808. So I had the 808 early as a kid. I'm 17, 16 with an 808 at my fingertips and Moog synths. So Paul didn't believe me, I don't think. I'm like, yeah, I got the 808, I got the turntables, records, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you need to come through, man. You know, he was like, yeah, all right. So he came through. He came through and got on my set, bro. And, you know, I got on first and I'm doing my little tricks under the leg, behind the back, you know, cutting and everything. And he was just matching me 1 for 1, bro. Anything I threw at him, he threw it right back. I'm like, oh, for real? These dudes are like thorough in Long Island like this? Like, really? You know what I mean? I might have had one.
Shout out to the legendary Prince
for real.
Paul.
The God Body Prince Paul, man. Shout
Man.
out my dude. That's my dude for life. Man. All of my Vince Wade in the building. What's up, God? All my people, man, from Amityville, you know, that's all my people to this day, man. I'm fortunate in that way too, because a lot of my friends I've known 30 some odd years, man. So, you know, they say if you got one friend, and I got many, so that's cool. But yeah, man, that's how I met Paul,
Strong Island, I mean, you know, it is not humble in the amount of legends to hip hop that has come out of Strong Island, just in general.
Not at all.
The Velt, you know, CI, you know, all of the places that
dance, right.
It's amazing that for some reason, you know, that's what happens too, though. You know, for cities, you know, the other borough, if you will, for cities that don't necessarily get looked at all, they have a chip on their shoulder. So for them, it's like, nah, bruh, we coming this way, you know. And and you know, talk about when you realized, okay, we doing this, and talk about your introduction to the industry, if you will.
My introduction to the industry, it goes back to Paul, man. Me and Paul, like, I really feel like there's certain people you meet in life that you're supposed to know in life. You know what I mean? Let's get more into a spiritual aspect of things.
Right.
But it's just certain people that come into your life that you're supposed to know, and they're usually with you for a good breadth of your life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, industry-wise, I had been making demos, and I was messing around loosely shopping demos. I had interest in a single deal from Plateau Records way back in the days. I didn't do that deal, but there was a couple of, you know, situations. I even ran into Babyface on a flight to LA once.
Oh, wow.
Before I got a deal, and when he was just coming up as a producer, and we sat next to each other on the plane. You know what I mean? So, you know, I had confirmation at many levels from the divine that this is what I was supposed to be doing. So I was doing all this shopping stuff, but then Paul got with Steck, because Paul and I had a group first. Like, we had the Soul Brothers. It was me, Prince Paul, my brother Ray, he was Sugar Ray at the time, and my man Mike Toluxin, who to me to this day is still, although unknown, one of the illest MCs ever in history.
Man, okay, stop right there too. We're gonna. I can already tell we're gonna be stopping a lot in this interview because he continues to drop bombs on the people, and that story, that particular phrase that you said, is so compelling because for a lot of people, when we think of MCs, there's a lot of people that are so fucking dope.
Right.
But they never had a record.
Right.
That wasn't their path. It was really for you to hear.
Right. Real talk.
So, you know, for a lot of artists out there that feel some kind of way about not making it, the idea that someone can say, yo, this dude was one of the best lyricists I ever heard, means he made it. That's what making it is. Like, someone heard you and said, man, to this day, ain't nobody fucking with dude.
Hey, look,
like, that's real. That's hip hop right there.
That's hip hop, bro. It's because hip hop is beyond industry and records and all that crap anyway. It predates that, and it's gonna be after that. If streaming and all that falls away, hip hop is still gonna be there. So
sometimes your purpose isn't to talk to the world; it's for your people that the message was supposed to be given to.
Right.
It's their job to tell the world.
That's right.
All you were supposed to do was just do what you're supposed to do to get the message out.
Right.
And
right.
that shit is dope. We love it. That is
Facts,
what
baby.
hip hop is.
Facts,
That
baby.
is the essence of what hip hop is
Yo.
in a nutshell. Continue, my brother.
Yeah,
Continue.
man. So you know, we had a group first called the Soul Brothers. It was me, Paul, Mike T, and my brother, and we were doing our thing. But then Paul got discovered by Stetson Sonic, and they snatched him up as a DJ and put him in the group. So you know, he started doing that. So that was crazy. I was like, oh snap, one of us actually got a situation. You know what I mean? So that was crazy. And
Man,
then what happened?
and that's that. And that's that. Woo! We talk about the roots, but the step was everything the roots were
right
for that time.
Of course.
And that goes step, man.
Yeah, man.
Man, that On Fire, we was
bro.
When I tell you, we was rocking that On Fire down here, dude.
Dude.
And people weren't even digging it because it had so much bass up north.
Right.
But down south,
right.
Well, we had them vehicles. We had them vehicles for that On Fire, bro.
Yeah,
that bitch not. Continue, my brother.
And
it ain't nothing like hip hop music.
When Paul goes to Stet, that's how the connection happens because me and Paul are always family. But what happened was, as he went to Stet, I kind of delved more into the R&B / hip hop arena, and I started dabbling in that. But him being who he is and always reaching back to pull his friends with him, you know, that's how the Talking All That Jazz thing happened, because they were in the studio trying to replay a sample that you know they couldn't really clear the sample or whatever. And Paul was like, "Ah, man, I'll just get my man Newkirk." He told Daddy O, "I'll just get my man Newkirk to come in and play it." And Daddy O was like, "What the hell is Newkirk?" So he brought me in to Calliope Studios. Man, that studio was crazy. Brought me into Calliope, man, and then you know they hummed the song to me. They didn't even have the record. They just Delight hummed the bass line to me. And once I caught it on the keys, he said, "Yeah, that's it." 4 takes later, because it was just straight through. We didn't even use no sequences, nothing. It was just me, boom, 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 and then doing the filling parts with the keys and Talking All That Jazz was born. You know what I mean? So a lot of people don't know that. That's like, way back in the day, people don't even know that I'm even playing on that joint. You know what I mean? That's all me playing all the keys on Talking All That Jazz. So this is the introduction to the industry, basically. You know what I mean? So I'm still in the basement making this like trippy R&B shit that's like hip hop based, but influenced by like everything I grew up on, plus some Minneapolis vibe, because I was tripping on Prince and this dude was playing all his instruments. So I wanted to be able to do the same thing. So all this infusion of different styles of music got pulled into, this vibe that I was doing. And Paul heard it and was like, "Yo, this is different, bro. Like, this is some other shit." He's like, "Yo, let me get a demo." He said, "Give me a demo and I'm gonna get you a deal in 6 months." I was like, "All right, whatever." I wasn't even tripping on a deal. Like, I was shopping to little spots here and there, but I didn't care if I got a deal or not. I was just in the basement and I was good. If, anybody, my brother, Paul, if somebody heard it, Stephanie had, look, man, I'm transferring tapes right now. Where my tapes at? These joints right here, man. Go Stephanie. There goes Stephanie's name right there on the tape.
Oh, wow.
But that's Stephanie's name on the tape, because these are the tapes that I gave her when we was young. And, that's my homie. So I'm letting her hear the demos. Yo, check this out. Check this out. Lo and behold, Stephanie comes back damn near 40 years later like, "Dude, I got this song, that song, this song." So I'm transferring the tapes right now, bugging on my own self, listening to stuff I did when I was like 17, 16 years old. You know what I mean? Tripping out in the basement with drum machines and all that stuff.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But long story short, Paul literally came back almost 6 months to the day, knocked on my door, and when I opened it, he said, "Russell Simmons wants to meet you." I was like, "What? For real?" And he was like, "Yeah." So, you know what I had to do? I had to cut off the Jerry curl. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, my
'Cause I
brother.
wasn't going to Def Jam with no Jerry curl in my hair, cause I was like, I was hip hop enough to be like, yo, I'm not going to Def Jam showing up with no Jerry curls. So the Jerry
Shout out to Jerry Curl.
Facts.
For all the people that rocked the Jerry Curl.
Word.
You know, that was something to do back in them days. Shout out to S Curl too.
S curl, that was my thing, man. The S curl, man. Probably why I ain't got no hair now. But you know, yeah, man. So, you know, I went and met with Russell. Long story short, Russell signed me, and that's how Funk City happened, man. That's how the release, you know, the Funk City release happened, man. It was crazy, man.
Wow.
Crazy time. You know,
Wow.
and then all of a sudden I'm in the midst of all these people that I was tripping off of just listening to, like the PEs and the LLs and, you know, the Flavors and like Orange Juice Joneses and Allison Williams and all these people that was like on these labels that I was hearing. Now I'm in the midst of all these people, like, oh, you know what I mean? So it was crazy, man. It was a cool vibe.
Talk about how you met Third Base and
That's
that
Paul
movement.
again. That's Paul again.
Right. Because Third Base.
Yeah, that was us hanging out one day. And Paul hit me up. If I remember right, I was like, "What you doing today?" He's like, "Oh, I got a session with Third Base," and I knew Search from Def Jam, because Search,
Right.
when I first got there was no Third Base at that time. When I first got there, Search was like almost like an intern in the office, and he was doing his thing, running around. You know, he had his connects going with everybody in the office. So
Right.
when the group came about, they called Paul in to do a couple of joints. And we all used to record. I found this studio out in Long Island called Island Media, and that's where I recorded my album. That's where we did Gas Face. That's on the cover of the EPMD record. You'll see they're sitting in Island Media on that first cover.
Right.
De La did some of their album there, and he said, "Yo, I'm just going to record Searching Them today." I was like, "Oh, word, all right, cool." So I just hung out with him, and we went to Island Media, and they were cutting Gas Face. And you know, as they were cutting it, you know, they're laying down vocals and stuff like that. And Search just came up with this idea. He was like, "Yo, Don," he's like, "Yo, why don't you announce each one of us, like use that announcer voice that you did at the end of the De La record?" Because I was the announcer on the De La record as well. So right, they heard that at the end of the De La record, and they was like, "Yo, why don't you bring that character back on this song? And you can introduce each one of us." I was like, "All right, cool. What you want me to say?" And Doom, who was then Zev Love X, went and
Zev Love X, man, rest in peace.
Zev Love
Yes.
X, yeah, and bless the God, man, for real.
Yeah.
He went and jotted down what they wanted me to say. You know what I mean? And which
Right.
is crazy, because Pete Nice saved that piece of paper. If you go to my page, I posted it because Pete posted it on the gram. So I reposted it because it bugged me out when I saw it. Because I saw the paper and I was like, "Yo, I remember that piece of paper." And then I read it and I said, "Oh, that's the joint that Doom wrote out for me to say on Gas Face." So I just went in there, you know, with the paper and "Thanks, Search, and now for the Prime Minister," you know, all that, and did all that joint. And then next thing you know, Gas Face blows up. People thought I was a part of Third Base, actually.
Right, right. I mean, I'm guilty of that because I that Third Base was, you know, a movement.
Yeah.
It you know, it felt like they were part of they were part of the change, the torch changing. There was all kinds of different artists coming out at the time.
Yep.
And they were an introduction to the 90s.
Facts.
And when they were able to kind of do what they did, shout out to Third Base, because we don't have Nas without Third Base.
Yeah, you don't. It's crazy when you look at how things connect, right?
Right. You know, they had a vision, which once again we can't talk about. We take Eminem for granted,
right,
in a lot of ways, but there's no Eminem without Third Base.
Nah.
Third Base gave Eminem the okay.
Yeah.
That it was okay to do what you were going to do.
Yeah.
And you know, like I said, to be a part of that movement, that energy, with probably some of the like, dude, when we seen Search with that damn flat top with all the with all the cuts in it, like,
Yeah, man.
dude, it was like, come on, man, that step
Them
into
cats was
the
fire,
AM
man.
was so hard.
Third base was
Shout out to DJ Richie Rich.
Rich.
Shout out to that whole movement, man, because
Yes.
it was crazy, dude. And I mean, once again, y'all were blessed to have what, you know, we take for granted. When we look at branding,
Right.
Lamborghini is branding, Ferrari branding, Gucci branding.
Right.
Y'all had the Lamborghini of labels.
Yes.
Def Jam.
Yes, the Lambo of hip hop labels, man.
And dude, when we seen that Rush Associated labels, the Def Jam, you know, Row,
Right.
you know, when we seen that as DJs, we knew we didn't have to listen to it.
Right.
I could literally go to the store,
Right.
grab that record, and literally I'm walking the club,
Right.
take it out, and I can play it, and I know it's gonna pop.
Right.
I know it's gonna work. What was that like with all those different kinds of energies, the new wave, if you will, KMD, you know, all of this that was going on at the time? What was that like? Because they were right on the cusp of De La. I believe De La was coming out among that time as well. Like this period, what was that, 1990?
Yeah, that's like 90, 89, 90, yep.
Yeah. So 1990, you got Third Base, De La, you know, you got all this stuff going on. Talk about that moment in hip hop.
Yo, I mean, it was the epitome to me. It was the epitome of hip hop, man, because, you know, unlike now, and I'm not bashing anybody now, I think it's getting better actually now. Everybody had their own thing. There was never like, you never had a discrepancy of who you were listening to. Either you didn't know who it was and you wanted to find out, or you knew who it was. Like Chuck D was Chuck D.
Right.
P.E. You know what I'm saying? The Bomb Squad was the Bomb Squad. Like that's just what it was. Gangstar was Gangstar. You didn't have to like guess. So everybody had their own lane. And that was so dope to me. Like it was so inspiring because you would hear, you know, I would get to hear things early a lot of times because I'm in the offices. And I'd be like, yo, what are these cats thinking about in the studio? Like, what are they doing? Like, it's so amazing. You know what I mean? There's still a record called She Bit Me that Will Smith did that he never released that I thought was the illest record in the world. And she called And She Bit Me. And then there's like, you know, you would hear stuff like Flavor. Flavor is an ill musician. He had his own album where he was singing the whole nine. It never came out, but I would hear this music and run in the office like, yo, who is that? And it'd be like, yo, that's Flavor. I'm like, that's Flavor? And he had a song called You Got Your Ring Now, Keep It. In classic Flavor, you got your ring now, keep it. I was like, oh, that's hard. Like, what is that? Like,
wow.
You know like,
wow.
You know what I'm saying? And then it was just so varied. So you just had inspiration banging you in the head from all angles. You know what I mean? It didn't matter if it was Bismarck. It didn't matter where it was coming from. You know what I mean? It was just amazing. Like you had this amazing energy from everywhere. And I think it's getting back to that a little bit now because now there's a little bit of, you know, difference in the artists now. It's not as bad as it was a few years ago where you didn't know who was who. You know what I mean? Like I like some of these kids that's coming up because they're borrowing from everything, like the Chance the Rappers and, you know, the J. Cole's and stuff like that. They're not making enough music, but the library and the catalog that they're putting out, the Kendricks, you know what I'm saying? Like there's just a lot of variation now that we didn't have before a few years ago. So I feel like, you know, hip hop is like anything else. It's like the stock market. It just goes in waves. You know what I mean? It's always going to be here. So depending on how if you're zoomed in and looking at hip hop from a small lens of like the past 5-6 years, you might not dig it. But when you pull back and look at the whole chart of hip hop, man, come on, man. It's ridiculous. Like, that's why I can't do a top 5. I can't do a top 5 because there's too much there. Like, it's unfair. There's too much here. We taking 40 years and bringing it down to 5 MCs. That's impossible.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you there because there's 5. It's not an infinite 5. There's 5 that you can pull off the top of your motherfucking head right now. That you know that if you say it, it's your list. It's not everyone's list. That's your list.
That's
like
true.
5 MCs that you can be like, okay, well, that's like saying, okay, well, what kind of chicken you like? I like jerk, I like fried, I like grilled, I like baked. But you know what kind of chicken you like.
Right.
It really doesn't have, it's really not, like the list has to be about, not necessarily about who you're blessing as much as it is, I mean, because I've heard some crazy stuff. I've heard people say King T is in my top 5.
You see what I'm saying? No,
King T is dope.
King T is dope.
But that's your list.
Right.
That's your list.
That's true.
The people that inspire you, the people that tell your story in a way.
Right. Because Mike T is on my top 5 always, no matter what.
See that?
He is. Because my thing is, I've always been like, because I'm hip hop based first, and I was an MC back in the days. You know what I'm saying? When we had our crew, it was me, Mike, and my brother were the MCs. So I have a knack for holding on to people's verses. Like I can pull big verses out, no problem. J verses out, no problem. So if your verses are that dope where they stick with me, to me, I feel like that's a lot. And Mike, I got Mike verses that these ain't records that ever came out, but I got Mike verses in my head from 35 years ago. That's like there that I can just spit because like it's mine even. You know what I mean? Because that's how dope he is.
Do you hear that, Orlando? Do you hear what he just said? That his love for what is good to him, he ain't gonna feel bad about that, and he's gonna say it. And that's exactly what hip hop should be. It shouldn't because I do a top 5 every now and then depending on the artist.
Right.
But most of the time I'm having to tell them, dude, it's not someone else's list. You're not appeasing anyone by saying what you like or don't like. It's your fucking list.
That's true.
You know, what inspired you? What made you feel like MCs are the truth? And that truth is going to be different from my truth.
That's true. That's a real thing. You're right. And then there's certain things that are just universal, damn near on everybody. Big's on damn near everybody's list.
Right. But there's an argument to be made that Big, though he's dope, he wasn't around long enough to contribute more.
Then you get
so
into that
I can
right,
and I can understand that.
Right.
If your criteria is different from mine, like Marvin Gaye, "What's Going On" album, to me it's top 2,
right,
all time,
right,
of anything made,
of anything,
and that's a very difficult thing to say because that was literally an EP. A lot of the music sounded alike on there. Sounded like an extension of like just long extended singles.
Right.
But what he was able to do on that, I would put anything against it. I'd put Thriller. I'd put fucking anything Beatles.
Of course.
I'd put anything that was great against that one album. And there's no topping that album.
Right.
Because he was able to capture the entire spirit of that fucking time.
Yeah, he really did.
In an album.
And the fact that it sounds alike is what's even doper about it because he encapsulated a stream of consciousness. You know what I mean? It was like this one stream of consciousness, which is really hard for an artist to do, to hold on to a stream of consciousness and make it interesting enough that you're vibing with it all the way through.
Right.
That's not easy to do, man. That's like, how did you do that? Like,
right. It sounded like remixes of the same song, but it all sounded like new shit. Like
new shit.
Mercy Me, What's Going On, God Is Love. Like Inner City
Inner
Blues,
City Blues.
like all of this music sounded similar.
Right.
Like that we make fun of the young kids about right now too.
Right.
But every single thing he did with that similar music sounded completely
different and alike.
Right. But it was, the message, the consciousness, to your point, the way he was able to deliver. So, that's not going to be accepted because for a lot of people, Drake has an album that's probably the best of all time.
Right.
But they're looking at it. Right. They're looking at it based on it's been the most successful record, and the way we look at Thriller. Thriller was probably one of the most greatest albums ever to be made, but it didn't. Where it ended was Marvin Gaye. Like the one thing they didn't have on that record was fucking Marvin Gaye. Right. And if it had Marvin Gaye on that record, it would have been a rap. It would have been a rap.
Right.
But shout out to my man Don Newkirk. He's joining us tonight on the Soul Show. We're just talking hip hop, people. We're talking to our family right now, and we're just building and building. So talk about what it was like to kind of be behind the scenes, and then do your thing with this new wave. Because I look at Def Jam similar to like Four Quarters. The first one was the inception, where you had all the LLs, the Orange Juice Jones, the Public Enemies, and then you had that second quarter, which you guys were part of, the EPMD, the Gap, the third base, all of this new wave was coming in, and it changed. It like solidified Def Jam. If Def Jam wasn't the shit prior to that, which is difficult to say, it became like, what you got? You got a Mercedes? All right, I'm getting a Mercedes. Like it became that for hip hop. Talk about what that was for you during that time.
It was just kind of bugged out that I even had the opportunity to be in that mix, really, because it was a bit overwhelming actually, also because it was like so much talent. It was like, it was just so much, what I mean? And like, and those quarters that you're talking about was also relevant. Like LL was like the first God MC, what I mean?
Right.
LL was like, forget about it, what I mean?
Right.
And then you had Beastie Boys, what I mean?
Right.
So just like, and then the affiliations also. You got even though Run DMC wasn't signed to them, they're managed by Rush. You know what I'm saying?
Rush.
So the affiliations.
Rush Management.
Right.
Rush. Right.
And even though De La wasn't signed to Def Jam, they were managed by Rush. So they want Tommy Boy. So just the extension of Def Jam, the reach that Def Jam had, and still has to this day, actually. You know what I mean? It's a different thing now, but it still has the same type of reach through music.
Right.
There was nothing like that, bro. It was just like
man,
incredible.
And then you had that third quarter, the Redmans, the Method Man.
Oh my goodness. I'll tell you a true story. I'll tell you a true story. I had a studio in Queens for about 20 years, right? When the Def Jam thing died down for the most part, because I got dropped after a while. On the second album, I got dropped because they sold everything to Columbia. So Columbia started cleaning house, and if you didn't make numbers on your first,
do you mean Polygram? Because they were originally on Columbia, and then
they were distributed by Columbia at first,
right?
But then Columbia took over.
Okay,
before they even went to Polygram, because then it went to Polygram, then it went to Universal now.
Right.
So when Columbia actually stepped in, they kind of, how I saw it at least, was they kind of started cleaning house. If you
it was a consolidation.
Consolidation, right? And then so my next album was there for them to possibly put out, but they was like, nah, I guess he didn't sell enough first round, blah blah blah. So I got dropped, but I was fortunate and smart enough that I used some of my advance money from the second record to build a studio in my crib in Queens. So I was banking and bringing bags in because I was in the hood in Queens, and because I was in Jamaica, it kept me right in the thick of the music. So I was still
Right.
hearing all this new stuff that was coming. So
Right.
I brought that up to bring up because you brought up Red and Meth. Rockwilder used to come to the studio like on a regular. Like Rock used to
Shout out to Rockwaller.
right, that's my dude for life. So he was in the studio on a regular. And I remember one time Rock disappeared for like 6 months. And I was like, anybody seen Rock? He was like, no, we ain't seen Rock. And when Rock showed up, he had that one beat tape. And it had everything on it. It had the Jay-Z joint on it. It had the Rockwaller on it. Everything that blew him up was on one mixtape. And when he showed up and dropped that joint in, I had a smoke machine in the studio. So we lit blunts, hit the smoke machine, and put on that mixtape, and we bugged out. I was like, yo, Rock, you out of here, B. You out of here. Because when I heard that Rockwaller beat, I was like, yo, you just found something that's just, you know what I mean? Because he did the same thing, man. He was pulling from all of his resources in hip hop. He was pulling from, from Eric and from Red and from me
Right.
and from cats that used to be around us, like my man Nice and Sage and all them cats. Like, so he was an amalgamation of everything and everything he listened to, plus his church background. And he just found this hop that was different and sparse. And I was like, dude, you about to blast off. And sure enough, when that one mixtape got out, took him out of there. And it taught me a lesson. It taught me that when you're ready to reach that next level, you got to lock in. You got to get low. You got to get disappear for a minute so you can focus on the craft and bring forth what you need to bring forth. So,
man, did he drop another bomb in the city? Shout out to the 407. We already know how serious, how universal teachings that is. The idea of going into the desert.
Yes.
And most people don't want to go to the desert because it's hot, it's solitude, and the bulk of your decisions are made in the fucking desert.
Real, bro.
Let's go.
It's real,
Let's
bro.
go. Continue, my brother.
It's the Jesus theory, ain't it? That's where God went. It's the Jesus theory.
Go in the desert.
And people don't want to go. They don't want to do that because it's scary.
Well, you have to cut people off.
Right.
And most people are more greedier about you than you are about you.
Say it again.
Most people are greedier about you than you are about you. So you will give yourself to the world at the cost or the expense of you. And the world is saying they need you more than you need you.
Facts.
And that's not a great place for artists at all.
For artists, no.
It's the hell. It's the hellfire. It's where Shaitan lives. Because part of developing your art requires you to hold that cross, purpose, talent, gift, whatever you want to call it, on your own. And most people don't want to do that.
Right.
It's what you need to do. It's what you need to do.
Right.
But most people don't want to do it.
Right. At least until you find your specific team or tribe or group, you know what I mean, that you completely roll with, you know what I'm saying? Because then you can do it within that, like how De La had De La, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then Paul came in and was a part of that, or, you know what I mean? And how
but that's the universe working, right? Like
right, exactly.
we aren't able to be the earth until the sun is at the size it needs to be and at the heat it needs to be.
Exactly.
But most people don't trust, once again, won't allow themselves to get out of their own way because they want to give themselves to others, in which if you don't know where the fuck you're going, how the fuck do they know where you're going?
Right. The real thing.
They can't encourage something in which is foreign to them.
That's right.
They don't know. They don't know what's in you because you don't know.
Because you don't know. And
when you know it, right? When you know it's a cross in your life,
right.
That's a cross. Like, oh shit, man, I'm supposed to be doing this and I'm not.
Right. That's when it becomes heavy. That's when it becomes the cross. when you
Right.
know, the more you know, and the more you're willing to share that aspect of yourself, then you're lifted. The burden is lifted.
Right.
But you have to give yourself time to know yourself, to go
Right.
within, to be able to express that. Like we were talking about before we went live, all of these entrepreneurial cats right now who don't have to give their time. They got money, they got tens of millions of dollars. They don't have to give Johnny P in the place to be. That's my dog right there. I known that brother for 40 some odd years. He knows me from a tyke. He remembers, you know what I'm saying? Like when I said I got friends that I've known, I'm a lucky dude because I got friends I've known for a long time. And I mean that. Like if you got a friend, I'm telling anybody that ever sees this, if you got one friend, you are the luckiest person in the world. If that person is a real friend and will keep it 100 with you and will tell you, what you're missing or what you have. Sometimes they can just tell you, man, you don't even see this about yourself. If you got that, you are golden.
Let me
That's why
tell
I
you.
know I am highly favored because I can go through a list of people like that. And it's not bragging, it's just that's just fortune. That's all
Let
it
me
is. It's
tell.
just
Let me
fortune.
tell you what you just said, and let me tell you how. Once again, um, my brother from another mother, Don Newkirk, is joining the Soul Show.
Word.
You speaking universal language right here, brother, because I was raised by a mother of Caribbean descent,
Mm,
and and she would tell me that on a regular, if you can count on one hand who your friends are, you're a lucky person in this
right.
life. That is hip hop. She didn't even know it. She didn't even know it, but it was her mission. I mean, and when I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. She would tell me this on a regular basis, and at the time, I said, "What the hell is she talking about?" But as I got older,
Right.
it started to make sense. And you hear this phrase being used right now, which is sometimes less is more, sometimes more is less. That also is translated into people, things, places. Um, we deal with this all the time in life right now because of what we've been dealing with, being molested all at the same time. We've seen things in our life that we probably never thought we would see,
That's
and
right.
we're seeing what is being made, what is being forged in this fire, if you will, of people that are either trying to get back what they've lost
Right.
or the people that are actually moving forward regardless to what they have,
That's right.
and embracing the less is more theory.
That's right.
um, talk about some of the things that you've seen in the industry that kind of was like that wow moment. Like, oh man, wow. Like,
Wow in a good way or wow in a bad way.
well, it depends on that wow. Like
Um,
a wow in a good way does have a long lasting effect, but
yeah.
sometimes there's wows in another way that kind of been like, damn, I
Um,
could have lived the rest of my life not knowing that.
right. I will say I'll preface it by saying I don't like the music industry. Once I got into the music industry and saw how the music industry moved, I just didn't vibe with it. I'm born in July, bro. I'm early July. I'm a Cancer, so everything for me is about feeling. So
Right.
music is about feeling.
Wait,
People
wait,
are
say that
about
again. Say that again, because we hear this phrase all the time. In my feelings. What did you just say, brother?
hey man, I live in my feelings because I was born in my. I'm
Let's
ruled.
go.
I'm ruled by my feelings. So
Let's
the only
go.
the only time in life where things don't work right is when I'm ignoring my feelings. So this whole thing that people do now, oh, you in your feelings. You damn right. You should be in your feelings. You better be in your feelings because your
Man,
feelings it's what's going to qualify the reality that's around you. If your feelings don't check out for you with a person, with a vibe, with music, with anything, with this bug that's flying around me right now, then if your feelings don't check in with that, you got a real problem. So
Wait,
you
wait,
know,
wait, wait, and just stop right there because once again, we're talking about hip hop music, hip hop culture, hip
right,
hop as a people, hip hop as a life, as something we do, something we live, something we live and breathe every day. This is hip hop. Right now, you're witnessing it in full fucking effect. Now, you say feelings,
right.
feelings.
Hip hop is something we feel.
What did we just go through 2020?
Oh
A
man,
moment in time that would require, in order to get through it, you either to feel what you just went through or to be numb to it.
right,
Most of the things that we're dealing with right now in hip hop culture, from a corporate standpoint, from people that are handlers of this thing of ours,
right. That's a good way to
um,
put it. Handlers.
handlers, um, they're feeding us things to numb us from
Yes,
feeling.
yes,
So if this and this happens, oh come on, get over it.
right,
We should have this. Why
right,
why why do you have? Why say anything? We're canceling you. Okay.
right.
In a world full of things trying to numb the pain, when we talk about this thing of ours of hip hop comes from pain.
Indeed.
It comes from not having and having to piece together what would be considered embarrassing. Oh, I took this radio, I wired it up to this, hooked it up to the street light. Nigga, you can't afford no lights. That none of those things would apply now in this atmosphere
Right,
of numbness, of where money takes you everywhere, but nowhere at the same time. Like so many people, um, and I'm getting to my broader point, but I just want to give this to you. Money, in all of its glory, tends to leave people desolate of things that hold no value to mainstream people. Meaning, and I talk about this all the time, and I can't say it enough. And this is what hip hop is about. You just spit your verse and let the chips fall where they may. For every dollar we exchange that we see physically, we do not see the other exchange happening, which is the transferring of our empathy, our love, our
mm,
forgiveness.
mm,
Um, when I give you my dollar, I lose a bit of love and forgiveness and empathy. That is why for wealthy people, they have to work twice as hard to maintain it. Whereas someone that's poor, they don't have to put in that work. They acknowledge a lot more of their valuables, if you will, which is their family, which is their, love, being able to forgive, which we view stupidly. Like, no wonder y'all niggas is fucked up because y'all live in the projects and you forgiving some bullshit and y'all accepting this shit. And in reality, the lack of forgiveness, the lack of empathy is something we celebrate.
mm.
We're quick to eliminate people from our lives based on our level of being up in the world.
Right,
I make more money, so I ain't got more time for that shit.
right. But that's the
I,
wrong aspect of it, though, if you really think about it, because, like, at the end of the day, like, I know exactly what you mean, but at the end of the day, I feel like the real problem is within ourselves, really, because it shouldn't be that when you hand over money, you have to hand over a part of
and
your
I'm metaphorically,
right, right. No, you're right.
rhetorically saying that.
No, you're right. But that's how it expresses itself, especially in our community. I think
Right.
this is why we don't support each other's businesses. This is why our dollar goes in and right back out and it
Right.
doesn't circulate through because we have this thing about this piece of paper that if I give this to you, especially you, because you're me. So if I give
Right.
this to you and not this other person, I have to relinquish a part of this thing of myself. And it shouldn't be
Right.
that. It should be gratitude to give you this dollar because you're giving me love. And that's like,
Well, boom. So
you
really,
know what I'm saying?
what?
Like music is love. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? Like the arts,
right,
any art, if it's an artist that draws, that's their soul. So it should be a welcoming thing to even if it's not art, even if it's just sneakers or if it's like clothing, a clothing brand, as long as that brand is true to something, to a why or to what they're doing and what they're trying to give to the community, we should be happy as hell to say, yeah, let me get that.
right,
Because why wouldn't I do that? Meanwhile, we'll go do it with some other people who falsely put a brand that kind of resembles you a little bit and then we go and we monetize their brand instead of each other's brands when
right.
all of our problems are solved with just looking into each other's eyes and looking into each other's hearts and just saying, oh man, you gave me something, you gave me some value there, here, take this, man. Oh
Right.
man, that's cool. We want everything for free from each other, but we want to pay for it when it's outside of our community, which is
Well,
weird to me. Like it's
well,
crazy.
you made my point even further. The idea of wealth does not lie in financing.
No,
It relies in love.
right,
So if to your point, based on that metaphor that you just described, if someone's giving you something, they're not giving you money, they're giving you love. But for most people that have money or have wealth, their biggest problem isn't poor people. It's
right,
them.
right,
It's them. It's them trying to not give away the very thing that you're talking. Once again, you cannot give to somebody what you no longer possess.
right,
There's a cartoon that describes that, right?
right,
The fucking Grinch that stole Christmas.
right,
The idea that in his mind, his most value, the value that he had was hatred. And he didn't understand why
right,
everybody was so fucking happy.
right.
Right?
That's right.
So in his mind, giving anyone love was foolishness.
Right.
Until he had that breakthrough moment where he seen the Cindy or seen that proverbial Cindy and said, okay, this does make sense. I don't want to live this way anymore. We have to have that breakthrough moment for us as well, where we stop looking at each other as these beings in which are designed to be hated and distrusted.
Right.
And all the things.
It's baked in. I mean, we can't.
It's baked in the cake.
We can only be but so mad at ourselves as a people because it is baked in. It's been baked in for hundreds of years into our psyche and into our consciousness. So we just have to really just acknowledge it and see it. Like, oh shit, this is what's going on. It's like somebody turns the lights on in the room and then you go, oh snap, I didn't know this was going on. So that's part of it. But until we realize it, it's still cool to just give. You know what I mean? Like that was the thing I learned over 2020 was to just give, to share. You know what I mean? How much can you give of yourself? How much can you share of yourself? I started a YouTube channel from scratch. Like I didn't even go on my Facebook and like bang everybody on Facebook, like join my channel. No, I wanted to grow organically. I got 118 subscribers. That's real to me. That's like actual. Those people actually want to hear from me. So that's perfect for me. And it's growing organically, slowly. And that's what I want. I could have went and ran some ads on Facebook and got some followers, but would they really be like subscribers? They don't necessarily really want to hear what I have to say because they just got suckered in, or not suckered in, but it depends on the message that I'm giving them in the ad, obviously. But
and to your point about advertising bullshit, there's plenty of people, most people that are in positions to advertise, there's a line drawn there. You said Jesus earlier. Well, the story of Jesus, he didn't have no fucking marketing campaign behind him other than God Almighty. Okay. Right? So the word didn't get out till after he was dead.
Right.
Based on the story. The
Right,
story
right.
says, the story says he only marketed to the people he came in contact with.
Right.
To your point.
Right.
And that at the end of the day, once again, back to your rapper comment of what one of your favorite rappers or MCs is, sometimes the message isn't your responsibility to advertise. Sometimes your message is supposed to be advertised by others.
That's right. And that's how you know it's real. That's how you know it's real.
Right.
When something touches you personally and you go, look, man, when I first heard Big, I remember the first day I heard Big. There's no like lapse in the memory. I've smoked a lot of weed over the years, but I remember that. You know what I mean? I was standing in my door. Alejandro, what up, bro? I was standing in my door. I want to shout everybody out in the chat, first of all. Everybody in the chat. Yo, man, thanks for coming to hang out with us. I appreciate it. I saw Bridget in the chat, my man Johnny in the chat, Alejandro. You know what I'm saying? Stephanie, I just want to shout everybody out. But when I first heard Big, I was standing in my doorway of the studio in Queens, and a car just went down the block. And as it went down the block, as he turned the block and passed my house, I heard, I was a terrorist since the public school era. And dude went down the block, and the verse and you know how when a car goes by, it slows down the sound as it goes by.
Right.
And by the time he got to the end of my block, I heard, but all we want to know is where the party at, and can I bring my gat? If not, I hope I don't get shot. And I said, who the fuck was that? Who was that? Like, what was that? So you know when it's real and somebody's sharing a part of themselves with you, you can't deny that. It's actually
man. Rest in paradise, the notorious Christopher B.I.G. Wallace. Do you feel hopeful? We were spoiled the fuck out. We were spoiled with poverty. You've heard it here first. I said it. We were spoiled with poverty.
Right.
It was a beautiful way of listening to the most poorest people sound like kings.
Right.
Like I remember hearing Craig Mack flavor in your ear for the first time and forgetting about how powerful Easy Mo B was on that.
Man, one of my favorite, just for the record, one of my favorite producers in the world.
Right.
You know, Paul knows that. I'm pretty sure I told Mo B that. You know what I mean? To me, hands down, ain't too many people messing with Easy Mo B, man. Like, on some hip hop shit, like, you know, cats give it up to, you know, there's so many. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not putting him over anybody else, but if I had to do my top 5, you got your Jay Dillas, but Easy Mo B is in my top 5. Guaranteed.
And deservedly so, because for what he did. I mean, he's an example, you know, on some hip hop shit. He's an example that needs to be studied over and over and over, because he's reinvented himself
over and over.
And
every time he did, and sorry to cut you off, and every time he did, it made me go, yo, what's that? When I heard Let's Coops the Beamers in the Benz and all of my peoples in my mezza, I was instantaneously like, what is that? Who is that?
Right. Man, he made these noises that I could, if I had to kind of compare it to anything I've ever heard, would be the similar noises I would have heard from the Bomb Squad. Right. Like their idea of what frequencies were and how to shape them and turn them into like horns that are like, listen.
Yeah, Bomb Squad had a way of slapping you the hell up.
Right. Like there was no way of turning that off. No. It was noise because it wasn't truly an instrument in that same way, but he took samples and kind of redid them in a way that only Easy Mo B could do it.
Yeah, man.
And I remember listening to that and saying to myself, who the fuck is that?
Right.
Because nothing
sounds like that.
the Flavor in Your Ear, which was the first release.
Yeah.
Orlando was blessed by having what was called at the time the Jack the Rapper.
Oh yeah, I remember Jack the Rapper.
Right.
For sure.
Puff came down here
For
and he had
everybody,
this little.
for everybody in the chat, Jack the Rapper was a what would you call it? It was a convention. It was a
Right.
music. It was a music convention, and it
You're
was
right.
specifically mostly hip hop, basically. And all
Right.
labels would come to the Jack the Rapper. You know, you got conventions for like fashion. You got conventions for all kinds of stuff, but this was a convention just for music, for hip hop music.
Right.
Jack the Rapper was
Right.
called. Yeah.
And he came down to Orlando and had this marketing strategy of Big Mac
Right. The
that
Big Mac.
looked right. And dude, I remember taking that home and just like, what the fuck is this? Even though I heard it prior, my man worked at Uptown Records, so I was able to get that was it Party and Bullshit.
Right.
But when it was repackaged as that, as Flavor in Your Ear and Juicy,
Right.
I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? This is where we're going now? And that was during the time of the Wu-Tangs, the Mobb Deeps.
Right.
People were reinventing themselves to be for this new wave. No one knew what it was going to be like, but it was just like this perfect wave of all things hip-hop.
Right.
And what, I mean, we're never going to replicate. Everyone says, from my generation, which is probably your generation, that the 90s was like a renaissance of the 80s and part of that golden era, but the super era of hip hop.
Right.
What say you about that? Like
Definitely.
The 90s will never be duplicated ever again.
I don't think any of it will ever be duplicated. Actually, it's just
right, that part too.
I think we'll get throwbacks from time to time. We'll get artists, and because everything moves in cycles generally in the universe, we're gonna get a cycle.
We'll get the beginnings.
Yeah,
we'll get the beginnings back again. But the 90s was an answer to the beginning.
Right.
The 90s represented this whole idea of who you with.
Right. Right.
You with Queens?
That's
You
right.
with Staten Island? You with, LA?
Right.
Oakland?
Right.
Souls of Mischief.
Right.
Del the Funky Homo Sapien.
Oh yeah.
Ghetto Boys.
Oh my goodness.
Just the list goes on.
Diggable Planets.
Diggable Planets. Which I got Doodlebug coming on.
Oh, okay. Shout out
in
to
April.
Doodlebug. Shout out to the whole Diggable Planets.
Yeah.
Mecca is definitely my bandmate in Brooksville with me and Paul.
Shout out to Mecca.
You know what I mean? And shout out to Diggable, man, for sure.
But when we're talking about the 90s, I mean, it ran its course down to the last minute. 1999 was just insane when it came to hip hop.
Oh yeah.
Were we spoiled by our own desperation?
That's an interesting way to look at it. I never looked at it like that.
Meaning, when I'm saying,
no, I got you. I know what you mean.
Right.
But that's
because our poverty and the lack of not having, there was a spoiling that happened that I don't think is talked about enough. Like we were okay with our poverty.
Right.
There were kings walking around all day long that were doing just great things simply because this was their only way to do it. And they didn't have a blueprint per se because they were reinventing this thing of ours. Like they came totally different. Like Wu-Tang didn't follow a blueprint previously given to. There were they were a city that was, they were part of this island that was laughed at, the dump.
Right. Right.
Fuck want to be from Staten Island.
Right.
And they made like it. Staten Island should be in every. The story of Wu-Tang should be in every school, because if you can come from a dump, that shit, there's no complaints. You cannot say you don't have. They literally came from what was a dump. When I'm talking about the city dump,
right?
Staten Island is not something that's hailed. Shout out to Force and Deeds, we get it. But for what Wu-Tang did for Staten Island, UMCs, shout out to UMCs. But for what Wu-Tang did for Staten Island, that should give people hope in any kind of situation. We see people like Bone coming out of Cleveland. We see, my man Tech Nine coming out of Kansas City. Right. We see all these unsung heroes representing their spot. What say you about the idea of hip hop not remaining the juggernaut it once was in New York City, and it being applied everywhere?
In New York specifically, I think it's cool. Again, it's all cycles, bro. It's all waves and cycles. So it's a good thing actually that hip hop is moving. It has to move around, because if it doesn't move around, if it had got pigeonholed into New York and everything was based and compared to whatever was going on in New York and hip hop only, then we lose. We lose so much of the diversity that came from everywhere else. So I think it's perfect that it, shifted out to the West Coast and then shifted to the South and then to the Midwest. You know what I'm saying? So that it has to do that. Even shifted overseas. You know what I'm saying? Like to Japan and to Europe and all that. You have to have that because it allows it to become the snowball effect, and it allows different cultures to add what they have and to say what they want to say and to express themselves the way that we did, back in days, back in the Bronx and everything. So I think it's dope, actually. I think, I hope it keeps going.
You hear this argument at times about things being co-opted or, appropriated, if you will. What say you about that? Because once again, going back to poverty, money is an elite instrument. It's like having the Mercedes of knives or guns. Only a certain echelon of people will have these guns or knives. They don't kill you any different, but they hurt different. Or hip hop, when it started, poverty united us. It was Puerto Ricans, it was blacks, looking at hip hop and saying this is the way that we express ourselves. What say you about this argument that it's being appropriated, it's not being done right? These lyricists ain't, rhyming the way they should, or these, the music needs to sound like the 90s, or, it's not real this or real that. What say you about that entire argument?
I don't have a problem with the music now. I actually like a lot of the music now. And I just think the multifacetedness of hip hop it's always been that. It's always been multifaceted. So you always had cats that weren't as dope as other cats. Now you got, maybe cats. I think what's happening is that people from our generation that are just judging, what's going on now because we're older. So we're purists to a degree. You know what I mean? I think that's one thing that kept me current in the industry and just hearing things. Like my brother said to me the other day, how you listen to that trap stuff? Because I make the relative connection to everything. I hear trap and what I can play you a mixtape that me and my brother did, in 87, where he was programming the 808 like these cats are now. with the triplets.
Can you say that one more time for the people in the back? Because I don't think they heard you. Can you do that?
There's a tape that Paul has. I have. Paul, one time Paul and I were on a plane and he was listening to something in his headphones, and I went up to him at his seat. I was like, "Yo, what you listening to?" And he took his headphone off and put it in my ear, and it was the Soul Brother mixtape, which was the original tape was just me and my brother in the basement with an 808. And he was listening to that. I was like, "Yo, you still listen to this?" He was like, "Yeah, it's crazy." But my brother was so ill with programming. He used to program the triplets. Like
right.
To use them with their hi-hats.
Right.
He was doing that in like the late 80s, like 86,
When?
86, 87.
Okay, I don't think they heard you over there, bro. When was that?
86, 87. He was triplet and hi-hats like that and other instruments. And when he asked me, how do you listen to it? I said, I just hear the resemblance of everything. Even though we didn't blow and nobody even heard those mixtapes with me, Paul, him, and everything. The thing is that when something is created, we're getting into the airy fairy shit again. But when something is created, it goes into the ethers. It doesn't matter if it was released. The ether picks it up. So they
and for my people that just joined the class and don't know what the fuck he's saying, he's talking about the universe. Okay?
Right.
Continue, my brother.
Right. So there's just energy that's already existing that people have created, whether you heard it or not. So when there's this little kid with FL Studio or this newfangled machine that he's using, and he picks up to hit the little triplet button and program it in, unbeknownst to him, he's just picking up on a vibration that's already been put out there by my brother or by someone else or by Mo B. He might not even have heard Easy Mo B really. Or he might have just heard it unconsciously, heard one of the Lost Boy records or Biggie record or Craig Mack record and really didn't pay that much attention to it, but it's out there in the ethers and he just picks up on it. And back to the MCs, as far as them not being what they could be or should be, so to speak, to me, I feel like it's all expression. If you can get to the core of it, these kids are expressing themselves. Now, let's not bullshit ourselves. We got a lot of crack babies that are rapping right now. All right, so
that part too.
Let's not bug out on ourselves. A lot of these kids was coming up latchkeys, but they was latchkeys from crack mothers or crack fathers and didn't have the See, for me, it's different because I didn't really come up in poverty. I came up around the poverty, but I always
poverty is not just money. Poverty.
No, I know what you mean. Right. I know what you mean, but just in general, I had like a successful dad. You know what I'm saying? My mom was like, the mindset wasn't. We didn't have a poverty mindset. We might not have had the most money in the world, but we definitely didn't have a poverty mindset. Then when I went to Long Island, those cats, everybody had a house.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody lived in a house. Your house might not have been as fly as that person's house, but we all had houses that we were living in.
Shout out to that whole Long Island house thing.
You know what I mean?
It's away from the apartment thing.
Yeah, it gave us a different perspective on just life. Like how Dave from De La said, I got the trees in my backyard, so it's hard for them to tell a lie to me. You know what I'm saying? I understand that because, I get that because it's different for us. We had trees around us. We were breathing. So these kids are just expressing from where they're at.
Right.
They can only express from where they're at. But we get different levels of cats that are expressing themselves. You get to a Kendrick Lamar, he's not like a lot of these other kids. He's expressing on a deeper level.
Well, he's expressing at a deeper level because you can hear it in his music that there was some reference in his life to refer to people that are older than him in a respectful way.
Yes.
He has been tapping into the elders and dealing with them from day one. He don't have to say a fucking word about whether he did it or not.
Right.
He is doing it. He sounds like an old soul, to use that proverbial statement. That's what respect for your history, where you come from, your respect for who you are, and where you're going.
Right.
He's the embodiment of that. The J. Cole's, everyone that views themselves as a temporary fix. Because most people try to feel that they're a permanent fix to anything, which is in our line of work, something that is not guaranteed. There's so many heartbreaks that people have did as far as artists that came in thinking they were a permanent fix to a problem, and they didn't last 3 months. There's the fact that we're talking about a Kendrick Lamar, he's in the fucking Smithsonian. He got a damn Nobel Peace Prize.
Right. So yeah, I mean, then we also have to remember there were dark days of our generations as well. Like we tend to forget that we had the wikis and there was an era of hip hop that I didn't even listen to. There was a time where it was just like, what is this they're putting out? And that was in our era too. You know what I mean? So, there was stuff that, was roller skate jams, but wasn't really important to me. I was like, this is not really what I want to hear. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Then Run DMC kind of fixed all that for us.
Right. Well, they had their shout out to Nucleus. We shot in that wiki and
right. And that was cool, but it wasn't like Rakim.
No, but it wasn't supposed to be.
And it wasn't supposed to be. And
it wasn't supposed to be.
And Young Thug ain't supposed to be LL.
No, it's absolutely fucking not. And that's the greatest thing about hip hop is that whatever's supposed to be, in theory, hip hop is not that. Hip hop defined what the phrase of what it's supposed to be. We were the fucking answer to that. We were rebelling against whatever the fuck it was supposed to be. Because from the beginning, we were told we're supposed to play the records through. And we said, fuck that.
Right.
We're going to loop these bitches.
I'm going to take this.
Right. Part. We're going to take this. We're going to be playing this part of the fucking record. Fuck you.
Right.
Before we were supposed to get a commission we were supposed to commission a mural. We said, fuck that. We're going to go on the subway trains. We're going to paint this bitch, and it's going to go all over the city.
Right.
Right?
Right. Graffiti, baby.
When we were MCing, the MCs were just supposed to worry about rocking the party. And we said, fuck that. Here's the message.
Right. Yeah.
This ain't about rocking the party. It's about telling you what time it is, what's going on out here.
Right? If you don't mind, I would love to see if there's anybody who has any questions in the chat, because I always see people do lives, but they never take any questions from the chat, and that would be kind of dope if anybody. Yeah, Nipsey Hussle, Steph, come on, Nipsey Hussle.
Right.
You know what I mean, yeah.
I listen to. Shout out to anybody that's ready for a question. If you got any questions that you want to ask the man, but to your point, or Stephanie's point, Nipsey Hussle. I just played him on radio with that joint he did with Jay-Z, and I was completely listening to it. I was completely blown away by his musical approach and his ability to communicate. He was taken out of our hip hop field, to me, based on the power that he was a Fred Hampton.
Yeah,
and he didn't even know it. Like, he was able to speak to the people in a way that because I'm gonna have to differ with you. Fred Hampton was taken out at 20, what was it, 21, 22?
21, 22, yeah.
Right. And when you've been 21 before, you don't know.
Well,
you feel it. You feel it. You feel it.
You feel it.
That doesn't mean you know. You just
not
feel it.
Not completely.
You feel it. You can share it because you feel it.
And you trust
it.
Because you feel it.
But you don't know the power of it.
Right.
And that dude, had he knew the power of what he could do in death, he would not be dead today, man, because he would never put himself in a position to to just be that available to someone. Once you know your power, back to your first point of the show, you were talking about isolation.
Right.
If you got a job to do, you know you got to wake up early in the morning. Maybe your job is 6 in the morning, right? Are you going to the club? Are you going to the club?
Right.
No.
Not going to the club.
Everybody's like, yo, where's Newkirk at, man?
You ain't in the club.
Right. You can't find me, right?
Right.
You got to wake up in the morning, right?
Right. Right.
That's what I'm talking about. The power of our purpose, which is our job. It's really our job. That's the only job you have. You have one thing to do. I'm pretty sure God gonna be laughing his ass off when we show up at the gate and he says, yo, you only have one job to do. Did you do it? Well, I had to work some overtime shifts. I had to do all this other shit. I had to buy all these people these things. Dude, I gave you music. All you had to do was give it to the world.
That's right.
I gave you this. All you had to do was give it to the world.
Right.
How you gonna fuck that? How you gonna fuck one job? All you had was one job to do. So that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of times, we don't realize the quality or the value of our power until it's gone.
That's true. That is true. Steph, what you say? Steph said, "What's popping with Malcolm X?" Oh, with Malcolm, man, look, that's what's popping with Malcolm X. Okay, we got Malcolm behind me over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all backwards. Yeah. That's the Netflix joint that me and Paul scored. Who Killed Malcolm X? Which I'm super happy we did because I realized this year, how pivotal that's going to be in years to come. Because this year, you know, when his death came, we just passed his death, and we're coming up on his birthday actually. So what's happening? I'm realizing is I was on Netflix and I saw that it was trending again in the top 10 on Netflix. Who Killed Malcolm X was trending on Netflix in the top 10 because it was around the time that he died. So I was like, yo, that's dope. So I was like, oh, so that means every year around his birthday and around his death, this documentary is going to trend. So I was like, yo, that's cool because, you know, that means Paul and I are part of history of that particular part of history of telling his story. And it's a dope, oh man, if you guys haven't seen it, it's such a dope documentary, not just because we did the music, but because of the way they covered.
No, hold on. Are you saying you did the music for that documentary?
Oh yeah. It's a 6-part documentary, a 6-part series, docu-series on Netflix, and it covers the story of the cats who pulled the trigger. Like,
wait, but really you said you did the music in that documentary.
Yeah.
That's breaking news. Let's go to breaking news.
Breaking news never stops.
Turn this motherfucking sound up, man. Blast this is concerned to hold this up.
Say that one more time for the people in the back. What did you do? What did you do?
Yo, the breaking news joint is crazy. I love that. Yeah, man, but definitely, Who Killed Malcolm X is the chronicalization of Who Killed Malcolm X. The documentary covers the actual shooters, especially the person they called the shotgun man, the guy who came up to the stage with the shotgun. You know, they were really trying to get to who these people were because there's so much controversy on the Nation of Islam killed them, the CIA and FBI killed them. Well, the documentary goes into just who these people were, not necessarily who they were controlled by or who the orders came from, just who these people were. And Prince Paul and I were honored to be able to score these 6 episodes of this docuseries. And I think we did a damn good job, actually.
Man, I watched the whole fucking series, though I knew the story.
Right.
Though it's part of our bloodline, if you will, of growing up 70s babies, and we lived literally the results of him being shot, and what that was like afterwards, the post Malcolm X, the post King,
Right.
But anytime where you can kind of get information, we already knew from the beginning it was sanctioned.
Oh, of course. Of course.
And we knew to this day that while supposedly the top law enforcement of this country, the name of one of the Klan members still drapes the front entrance, which is the J. Edgar Hoover building.
Oh, definitely.
And he is the Klan. As much as the Klan would ever think they would be, he was definitely a hoodwin motherfucker when it all rolls out. And his objective.
Right. They just had that cop from New York who just passed away, and on his deathbed, he, wrote a letter and basically just confirmed everything that's in the docuseries, Who Killed Malcolm X. And he was like, yeah, I was down with the whole situation with the New York Police Department and setting Malcolm up and getting him killed and all of that. So
Judas.
He just like on his deathbed just wrote it all out and threw it out there. It was really
Judas.
cool. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it was really cool to be a part of the doc also because, unfortunately Corona happened at the time, but right before Corona happened, New York State or New York City was about to reopen Malcolm's case because of the docuseries and take another look at actually what happened to find, the players in the murder, basically in the assassination. And then Corona happened and it kind of, dispelled that. Who knows if they'll
right. They were fine with him doing the white people a devil.
Oh, of course.
They were fine with that.
Yeah.
It's when he said, you know what? No. We need to coalesce around each other. Right. We're all humans.
Right.
But we need to work on our people.
Right.
When he started switching that message, that's just like what Fred Hampton was doing in Chicago. Right. He's bringing the whole city together. Right. He was like, bro, are you poor? They're fucking you too. Come on, let's go. Let's
he
move.
Didn't care if you was white, if you was Spanish.
Right.
He didn't care. That's where the danger comes in when you start unifying. It's not a game. So yeah, so that's definitely that stays on Netflix. Y'all can check that out on Netflix anytime. Paul and I are working on a new score right now for an HBO series. It's another documentary, two-part series on the history of Black television, actually. And it's called Seen and Heard. And it's through Issa Rae's production company. So that's really, really dope. We're excited about that. So that's pretty cool also. Then my man JD Lawrence just launched my man Jay. If y'all don't know who JD Lawrence is, y'all need to go find out. Go check on Facebook or just Google the brother, because he's a ill playwright in his own right, and TV producer as well. The man of many faces. He'll get on stage and play half the characters in his plays. He's one of them cats. And I went to high school with him. Going back to Amityville, being so multifaceted and full of talent. Went to high school with this brother. He's doing I don't know if it's going to be a series yet, but I don't even know if I should be talking about it. Yeah, I should be talking about it because he posted it on Facebook. He's doing a series on Amityville itself and the notorious block. There was a block in Amityville called The Block. And this was at the beginning of the crack era. And if you ever wanted to see darkness, it was on that block. Like, the block made Nino Brown's building. I forget the name of the building. What was it? The Carter? The Carter. The block made that look like Disneyland, bro. Real talk. So he's doing a series on that. And, he's bringing me and our high school music teacher, Everett Collins, the three of us, and probably Paul as well. We'll get together and do the music for that too. So that's coming up. So I'm, 21 is looking nice. I'm excited about 21. Some beautiful things happening, 20 was fine also. It wasn't so bad for me. I just took a different mindset to it, and I went with it.
Well, I want to explore that too, because, like you said before we went live, we were talking about the pandemic blessing.
Right.
And for a lot of people that may be insensitive. For a lot of people that may be like, okay, what do you mean? So just give an idea or concept and why you feel you were able to extract blessings out of probably what will turn out to be one of the craziest moments in American history. Describe it.
For two reasons, actually. One reason that I was able to extract positivity out of 2020 is because I was expecting 2020. I'm one of those cats that's been deep into what some would call conspiracy theory. Thanks, Tucker, on the score. I appreciate that, brother. Yeah, I'm one of those dudes that some people would consider a conspiracy theorist or whatever. I don't even agree with that term. I think it's silly. I think once you have more than 3 facts that point to something, conspiracy's over with. But that's neither here or there. So for the past 25, 30
Hey,
years,
could you say that once again? I think the people that were grabbing some food forgot.
once you take about 3 facts and you point them in a direction and they all point to a conspiracy.
Right.
So I don't subscribe to the whole conspiracy theory. If it's a conspiracy fact, that's a different thing. It's only a theory till it becomes conspiracy fact. So there's been a conspiracy fact for many years that the so-called elite had plans for this planet in 2020, which was called, and they wrote it down because they always write it down, but we tend not to read, so we don't see it. But they wrote it down in a document called Agenda 21. And if you go back, which was written about 20 some odd years ago, and look at Agenda 21, they were talking about how they were going to plan to reduce the population because they feel that the population is overgrown and they need to bring it down 2/3. So knowing that, when Corona hit, knowing it was biological and engineered, I figured, oh, okay, this is part of Agenda 21. So I just did what I would do. I went to go get as raw as possible and boost my immune system to try to keep whatever it was far away from me. And then with the isolation that we all had to go through, I utilized that time to do what we were talking about earlier, to go within and learn and experience new things. So I went and found, which wasn't hard to find, all of these huge entrepreneurial cats that I've already read a lot of their books and followed over the years. Now, because of Corona, it brought everybody to a level playing field, and they were doing these challenges. The Get Ahead challenge that Eben Pagan and James Mel did, and challenges that Grant Cardone did. And they were doing these challenges. The iPad that I'm doing this on right now, I'm using the iPad. I won this iPad doing one of the challenges.
Dope.
So,
Dope.
you know what I'm saying? So, and then people like Sean Cannell. He's a major cat on YouTube who teaches people how to do YouTube. I took his challenge, a YouTube challenge, and started my own YouTube channel. So I used that time as progressively as I could to better myself. You know what I mean? To learn.
And you know how important that is. Shout out to Steph. She said me too. You know how important that is, what you're describing. It's not your job. I'm not gonna say that's your responsibility. But you know how important it is that you're saying that, because for a lot of people, they've been caught up in this premise or idea of what it is to die. The trick has been you were already dying.
You're already dying. We're dying right now.
Most people have the hardest thing in their life, which is this concept or this idea of what it is to live. And living is not always pretty. It's not always rewarding. It's not always instant gratification from it. The living part is actually the more difficult. Being gone, it's a luxury that the living can't afford. Because for the people that are living here, to your point, you still got work to do. Right. You just described all of the work in death, in this idea of what all of last year, we were told in so many words, you could die, you're gonna die. When are you gonna die?
Right.
And you didn't even listen to that.
No, no.
You said, I'm going to live because I
Right.
got shit to do,
Right.
and this is what I'm gonna do.
Right.
And
Because it's not like, oh, they're telling you you're gonna die, so don't worry about paying your property taxes.
no.
Those didn't go away.
No, everything
You know what I mean?
fake remained.
Right.
Everything that is an illusion remained because
and
Yeah.
stacked up, and even stacked
it's
up.
stacked up, right? Like
There's a lot
you're
of people right now that got mortgages that they deferred last year instead of just keep working or doing a gig economy, whatever they had to do to keep paying that mortgage. They just let the payments just stack up, and now in a few months, those payments are going to be all due at one time. And
right.
you know, hopefully it works out.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist myself, but I subscribe to the idea of the universe.
Right.
Just because the answer has not reached me yet doesn't mean it ain't light.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Light speed, which is what we base everything as far as how you can reach another galaxy from here, is the fastest speed to get anything done. It's what we light is light.
That's
If you haven't received the answer, that means to me, it's not that the answer doesn't exist. It says for you, the message that's coming from you just hasn't arrived yet.
Right.
It's that far.
Right. Yeah, man.
Some are blessed to have a message sent to them through the post office. Some people get a message sent to them because they frequent this fucking convenience store and talk to the wino that told them some shit they never heard no one say. But that was the message. Some people, travel the entire world and hear some shit in Tokyo that reconstructs their whole entire mind frame.
Right.
We are children.
Right.
We hear all of these people telling us how much you need to be an adult, how much you need to grow up.
Right.
And for artists, that shit sounds like how much we need to die. Most artists are children by nature. They have no concept of what time is.
Right.
They just know
that makes them good artists.
Right. They just know they need to do whatever they're doing.
Right.
They don't know when it's going to be realized. It might be realized after they're dead, i.e. Bastia.
Right.
We're all children of our gifts.
That's right.
And the day we forget how to be children is the day we miss our gifts.
Yeah, you lose your gift, man. It's crazy. And that's why I didn't like the industry, because the industry tries to strip you of your childhood and your childlike nature. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it tries to abuse that, or does abuse that a lot. So that was
well, it uses money to do it.
not just money. It uses manipulation, psychological manipulation.
Well, that's money. That's money because
sexual manipulation. It uses
right. These are all. That's all currency. That's all money.
Right. It's all currency. Definitely all currency.
It's money. It's a way to exchange.
Definitely.
Something for something else. Your gift for their lack of gift.
Right. For this. Right.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, you want to live in this apartment, rent free, not worry about shit? Do that.
Right.
You want to have a hit record? You want to be all over the world?
Right.
Do this.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's currency. That's money.
Right.
That's an exchange.
Yeah, it's always a currency, and there's always a compromise for something. So, yeah, that was always the kind of thing. I was like, once I got into the industry, I was like, oh, it's a little funky there. I'm not really digging that, So I really took, after the album got dropped, that second album got dropped, which I'm releasing. I actually did a soft release last year of the second album that never came out. I did a soft release last year on my birthday, and just
So
did a
you own
poster.
the masters?
Yeah. And I'm
Oh
about to,
man.
and I'm about to pull my masters back from Universal for the first album as well, because those come back now also. So I'm really hoping that they figure out how to take NFTs and do audio with NFTs and get it right, because right now it's just artwork. But if they could figure out how to do NFTs with audio, I got some dope ideas that I want to do with some artist friends of mine with music that would be really dope as an NFT. But for now, the second album that didn't come out, I'm actually doing a release this year. I did it last year. I did a soft release just to get people's pulse to see what they thought. You said you rocking it every day, Steph. That's what's up. And Steph, she knew most of it anyway, but some of it she didn't hear. But yeah, so I did a soft release and let some people hear, what I was doing back with the second album, and I got a pretty decent response from it. So I'm gonna do an actual release this year digitally. Do it on Spotify. I'm actually thinking about doing wax, a limited amount of wax copies as well, maybe like 100 or something like that, like we did
Right.
with we did that with this. This was the By Every Means Necessary is the soundtrack to the Malcolm X documentary, and that's on Spotify as well. You can go on Spotify, check that out. But Paul and I did a limited release of the album for this, and we only released 100 copies of it. So that was dope. That went over really well.
Yeah, I think that is a mindful approach to what is going on right now. It's saying, okay, well, boom, we'll make 100 copies of this.
Right.
It's that valuable.
Right. Exactly.
And I think we're in that kind of, moment in time where right now we need to be thinking of ourselves that way, as
Right.
that valuable, that
Right.
because the world views us as that way. We're the
Definitely.
most valuable commodity on the planet. People of color, our ideas, how we approach things, how we think. Hip hop is being used in every fucking platform. I
Oh,
never
def-
thought I'd look long enough to hear country music using hip hop
Yeah.
to
who
be
knew, right?
relevant.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Who knew?
I never thought I'd
Right.
see a day in which hip hop is ruling the entire industry of fashion. I never
Right.
thought I would, see schools
Mm-hmm.
teaching hip hop without saying the word hip hop. They're appropriating, they're
Right.
saying it, but this is a language. It's how you live. It's how you think. And
Right.
like most things, if you do not learn the language, if you do not learn the culture, you will be left out.
Oh,
You'll
definitely.
be in a foreign land.
It's funny
And
you say
hip-hop-
that. I just saw. Sorry to cut you off. I just saw a clip of Ryan Leslie actually talking about that same thing about learning the language. He was talking about coding and how,
Right.
as a people, we only inhabit like 3% of the coders in the world,
Right.
which I thought was a lot actually. I didn't think we had that many, 3% even. But he was talking about how we need to learn the language of coding because that's the future. You know what I mean? Like we have to learn coding. So you're right. Hip hop is a language in and of itself, and we have
No, it is a language. And once again, we've lived in a society. I don't know if you've lived anywhere other than this country. I know I'm one of them. I've only lived in this country.
Yeah, I've only lived in this country. I've been to other countries, and I
Right, I've been to other countries, but I
almost
haven't
moved to
lived there.
Japan. I thought
Right.
of moving to Japan, but I didn't move to Japan. But I almost moved to Japan actually.
But living in this country, they only want you to speak money.
Right.
And shout out to all my people that speak other languages. I'm one of them. I speak fluent Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican.
Oh, that's what's up.
But shout out to anybody that understands the idea or the concept of speaking multiple languages.
Right.
Because when you speak multiple languages, your level of interpreting other things
Right.
is kicked up another notch.
Right.
When you only grow up learning one language, you're limited in your
Right.
understanding.
Right. You are, and you're taking advantage.
You're
of it
limited.
because of that.
you're taken advantage of. You're only told this is the only way, and your language is your example of being the only way because that's the only way that's got you here.
Right.
If you're only shown English and you're told that this is the only way that you're going to get here, you believe it. There's no other example of it.
Right.
But all my people that are bilingual that interpret other languages, whether it's fucking Spanish, French, and I'm not bigging up Spanish as if that's the thing to do, because Spaniards were slave owners too. They didn't give a fuck about us neither. They raped and pillaged all Caribbean.
We were slave owners too. We were
right. We were all. What I'm saying is that this concept or the idea of inhabiting a place in which the last thing you want to do is learn the culture is no longer going to be accepted moving forward.
Right.
Only because we have the technology and the information to get out of that.
Right. Definitely.
There's going to be a lot of people like yourself and others who say, even back then with the equipment that you had, you made others come up with other equipment. Right. Once you figured it out, it was like a video game. And they came up with other equipment. Okay, we'll figure this motherfucker out. Well, now we're adding this. But the complaints that we said didn't work, for our older equipment, they've now implemented in the new equipment.
Right, definitely.
Shouts out to all my DJs. We Grandmaster Flash said, hey, man, we need a cue on this.
Right.
And they made a cue.
That's right.
So it's just little things like that add to the story. When you travel, when you talk to different people outside of your circle, when you speak another language, you can your mind expands in ways that necessarily that doesn't equate with knowledge. It just equates with position. Where are you at? Who you were raised by? Now you can look at the same thing we are both looking at and see something totally different from that. Whereas you could be a school dropout, but if you know 2 languages, it's damn near the equivalent of going to school all your life.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, I just realized my battery's down to 10%. Holy crap.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But no, I'm with you 100% though. Definitely, man. You gotta the more language you speak, the more fluent you are at becoming fluent in life. You know what I mean?
Right. Respecting the natives.
Yeah,
respecting the natives.
That's
you
right.
you go a certain place, you talk to the people, you deal with the people, you respect their culture. Then it's reciprocated. There's not a response to it. It's a reciprocation. It's saying how much we give a fuck about what you guys are doing, and you genuinely give a fuck about what we're doing. Now, before your battery dies, you're in studio right now.
Yes, sir.
Talk about some of the equipment for all my gearheads, or what you got in the background over there, brother.
Real quick, to Born Nice, if you still in the chat, yes, I will be signing those joints. If I do vinyl, yes, I will sign them. Definitely. That was one of the things that Paul and I wanted to do when we released By Every Means Necessary. Is we personally signed every single copy with wet ink, all 100 copies.
Dope.
They sent all the shit to me first. I signed every one of them. Then I sent them all to Paul. He signed every one of them, and then we sent it back to the label. So that's definitely something I'm definitely going to do if I release this on vinyl or CD. I probably won't do CD because people don't really want CDs, but if I do vinyl, for sure, I will definitely sign every one of them. And knowing me, I'll personally sign them to you directly. You know what I'm saying? Not just, thanks for buying it. It'll be like my dude Born Nice, my bro for many years. You know what I'm saying? Because I've known you for years, bro. So definitely, you know what I'm saying? What's up, bro? Everybody, man. I appreciate everybody.
Everybody's in here tonight, man. Everybody's feeling it.
I appreciate y'all coming in and hanging out with us, man, for real.
Yeah,
but
man.
To the gear real quick. I keep it simple, man. My gear is simple. I don't know if y'all can see everything. Let me turn this a little bit. Right here, I got the machine.
Machine, brother. Dude.
That's the machine 1.0. I didn't want the machine. My man Ali Bennett, baby, he bought that for me. We was doing some music together. He heard me talking about it, and he just went out and bought it for me. And I was like, man, why do
So-
you do that? You ain't have to do that. But then after I got into it,
Dude,
God, oh
I'm
my
right
God,
there
thank
with
you.
you. I'm right
Thank
there
you.
with you. I bought the machine, not because I necessarily wanted to. I grew up on the MPC,
Right.
you know, but when I was shown what I could do with that thing,
Right.
I was like, this is actually a night for my day. My
Right.
day may be the MPC, but my
Right.
night may be the machine, and I could do
Right.
shit totally different on
Right.
here.
I still
Talk
have
about that, bro.
my-
Shout
my-
out to Native Instruments on that.
Hold up. My 3000's over there in the corner. I got my 3000 still as well.
3,000, let's go.
Yeah, I gotta keep a 3000. I got my 3000 over there. I'm a gearhead, bro. So I got
Dude.
I got the machine right here. I got the rack mounted stuff. This is a Novation. The rack mounted
Novation.
Yeah,
Program
man.
fat lines on Novation.
Oh my
Let's
God.
go.
So fat. I got the Oberheim 1000 analog and a rack mount. That's analog all the way. I got a motif rack. You gotta have a motif rack. Just 'cause it's-
Motif. Let's go.
That's a
Yamaha.
staple. I got a U220 Roland. You know what I'm saying? I got a box, a Sony radio. And my
Dude,
man, shout out to my man Tony Druten, because he just put a post up. You know, I came up under some of the dopest engineers ever. That's another thing I had the fortune. I learned the language of engineering from some of the dopest cats like Tony Druten. You know what I'm saying? Like Angela Piva, who did all my Funk City albums. She engineered all that. Her boyfriend, her husband actually, Roe Shamir, another ill cat in the engineering field, did all the Al B. Shaw stuff. So I was able to absorb all this stuff from them coming
Right.
up.
What's that board? What's that board you're using?
That board sitting there with Anubis. You know, my daughter gave me this dope ass Anubis mask. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Dominique, my daughter, because she gave me the Anubis mask.
Oh,
And,
no.
she understands that I know about that underworld. But this is a Moog, that's a Moog Voyager right here.
Moog. Shout out to Moog. Let's go.
You know what I'm saying? This right here is sequential circuits. This is an old school 6-track. This is an organ. You probably can't see the organ, but this is an organ that I found on Craigslist this dude had, which is really crazy. Sounded really crazy. And as soon as I got it, it paid for itself because I used it on
Shout out to Craigslist.
Craigslist.
The fucking organs.
Let me see if I can do this without, if I can do this without messing up here. Okay.
Okay.
Over here, I got the Rhythm Mace, old school drum machine.
Okay.
Mace right here. You know what I'm saying? Up here, I got the Roland MC307 Groove Box.
Whoa!
That
Shout out
came
to
from my man-
Roland.
That came from my man Smoke Dog. He hooked me up with that, and he hooked me up with this classic R70 Roland drum machine.
Damn.
And then a very little known, not a lot of people know about this joint.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I already know it. I seen
Not
it.
a lot of
You picked
people
it up.
know about this.
Yeah, I know it. Man,
Okay?
dude.
This is a beat thing.
a beat
Yo.
thing machine in its actual
Yo, man.
form.
Not
They have the
software.
software.
Right.
It
I got
comes
the
as a
software.
plug-in. Yeah,
Yup, but the beat thing, the actual is crazy.
that's crazy. Crazy.
I really wish, honestly, bro, I really wish that the beat thing was made by Beat Kangs. Oh man, this battery's dying.
Beat Kings, right? Beat
Yeah,
Kings.
the beat Kangs, and they made the beat thing. And when I got it, I always wanted one, and I got it, and I was like messing with it. I was like, oh my god, this is so crazy. But there's bugs in it. They never really.
Nah, and there's really no
didn't develop-
updates.
Yeah, they did.
Right.
They stopped developing it, so it's real buggy. But I got some heat in there. I'm gonna do a couple of YouTube videos where I just go through
Please.
some of the joints that I made in the beat thing, because it's just nothing like it's just onto itself. It was before they started making the MP standalones again, the virtual joints.
Right,
Now-
that was the answer. Right.
Right. Now they got the machine standalone. They got the new MPs that are standalone. But that beat thing, it beats
Yeah,
a lot of-
I sold my 4,000 MPC.
right.
I started to your point to 3,000, and I first purchased the MPC 2000,
Right.
and I've been with them ever since. And I sold my 4,000 for the MPC X, and you know as a producer, as a fellow producer, and I know you're gonna say the same thing. It's not really about the machine. It's just
No.
about you now. It's
No,
just
it's not
about
about
you
me.
now.
Yeah,
You
it's
make
not about
anything
me.
on everything. You use
I
a
don't
bit.
care what it is.
You
I
use
don't care what it
pieces
is.
and bits of everything now, right?
Right. I'm working on a video right now for my YouTube channel. It's called How to Use Any DAW in 30 Minutes or Less. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's not about the machine, it's about the concept. If you
Right.
understand the concept of what these things do, whether it's a drum
Right.
machine, whether it's a digital audio workstation, it doesn't matter what somebody sits you in front of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You
They all
work
got a play.
everything.
They all got a play button. They all got a record button. They all got a rewind button. They all got tracks. They all got solo, mute. So all you have to do, my man, I got to shout out my man Dinky Bingham. Dinky Bingham was one of the original Jamaica boys back in the days. So Dinky Bingham's an ill cat, and Dinky taught me. He's the one that got me off of my 1680 over there and made me get a computer because I had two 1680s for a long time, digital workstations.
Yes.
He was like, if you could figure this thing out, I could teach you how to use a computer in a night. So on his word, I sold one and bought a computer because I trusted him. And
Right.
he literally sat me down in one night and taught me how to use a Mac. And I've been using one ever since. But the way he taught me was so dope that I got to share that with the rest of the world because he taught me, he said, yo, man, this is like driving a car. He said, if you know how to drive a car, you could drive any car.
Right.
If you know how to drive a stick, you really could drive any car. So all I got to do is teach you how to drive this one car, and then any car you sit in front of or get into, you're going to be able to drive.
Right.
So
And shout out to my man Jeremiah, because he did similar things. He showed me the value of the computer because for me, like I said, my first introduction to technology in that way, Shaquille O'Neal gave me his NPC 60, and when I worked on that, like Macs, they're proprietary.
oh,
And
I'm back.
I didn't.
I thought my drink died.
Right. And so like the 60 was made for the Mac. Like the whole setup of the Roger Lynn Macs, the Roger Lynn NPCs were like suited for the Mac. Like if you did everything, if you stored everything on Mac, got samples from the Mac, you can load them right in. And I didn't know that. Like I was just new to the game.
Right.
But he put me on to PCs and the idea of what you could do with a PC, and then Mac and how important Macs were to music. And to your point, man, technology, if used right, if put in the right perspective, and not just viewed as some kind of like, some rich shit. Like I started building my computers for music, and that changed my whole perspective on computers. So I'm not just buying a computer, I'm actually building it for what I need it to do. If I wanted to do this, then I'm building a computer for that. If I want, if I'm buying a Mac, I want the Mac in these certain specs to handle what I need to handle.
Right.
To continue what you were just saying, how important is that to have a friend like that can explain those kind of things to you, and then you receive it? It don't matter what people give you. It matters how you receive it.
Yeah, man, because, as a people, we tend to hate manuals anyway.
Right. You already know.
I don't like manuals, bro. So if you have access to someone who can sit you down, that's why we all love YouTube, right? Because we can just go on YouTube, watch a couple of videos, and get the hang of something. So I was fortunate to have people around me and in my life that would just put me on to stuff. Like I know how to make an 808 from a tone because I had Angela Piver teaching me how to key a tone off of an SSL and using a gate to trigger that damn tone. So it
shout out
every time a kick hit.
To side chaining. Shout out to sine waves. Let's go. Let's go.
I learned all of that early. You know what I mean? So to have someone to mentor you, this is one of the biggest things. Man, I gotta get this out before my battery dies. This is one of the biggest things that we need to understand in a community is mentorship. If we can just understand mentorship, people that can put you on to understanding something. And then you have to be open to the mentorship because you have to be teachable. That's like a huge entrepreneurial, rich person mindset thing. If you go look at my man, Kevin Trudeau, who did Your Wish is Your Command. It's on YouTube. It's been on YouTube. It is amazing. He encapsulates all of the ideas of the wealthy cats and puts it into a digestible series called Your Wish is Your Command. But one of the things, the second lesson, first lesson is who do you listen to? That's big because people just listen to anybody, but you got to know who you're listening to. So that's one. But second is how teachable are you? If you're not teachable, it don't matter if you got the best mentor in the world because you ain't going to pick nothing up. You're not going to absorb it. You're just not teachable.
Right. And I want, man, he's just continuing, dude. Don, I mean, I don't know if you need to be my co-host or whatever. I don't know. Like, dude, you're just fucking dropping bombs on our city, like, relentlessly. I love it because, once again, I don't think that's where all of our, like I say this all the time, stop trying to be the hero of your own movie.
Right.
Like, if I'm directing a movie, I don't need to be the hero of it.
Right.
So for a lot of people, we share, and sharing is a two-way street. For a lot of our OGs, they've shared, they didn't get the instant gratification they got from the sharing, and they become bitter behind it.
Right.
So there's the first wall. The next wall is they weren't patient enough to show the young ones that they get them. Because part of the process of receiving is the need to feel like you're understood.
Right, definitely.
So we miss that a lot of times, and they become resentful, and therefore they put up a wall. Right. So we got this fuck you contest, and nobody wins.
Right, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. Sorry to cut you off, but going back to the whole thing with MCs and hip hop nowadays is, if you think about it, unfortunately, a lot of these cats now didn't have mentors. It's not like cats from our generation, because I see my man Kasim just shouted out Prince Poe in the chat, and that's my dog. You know what I'm saying? Right. Organized to the end of time. Prince Poe.
Already. You already know. Shout out to Prince Poe.
My nigga. You know what I'm saying? Those are my people forever. You know what I'm saying? We used to build in the studio all the time, just kicking it, bugging out, beyond music. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Organized Confusion, that whole movement.
Not again, man. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing. That's the fortune that I've had when I had that studio, of having all this amazing talent around me also. But to the point was, it's nobody's fault per se, because maybe we didn't know to do it. But imagine if a Prince and Pharaoh were taking on some of these kids as they were coming up, and they probably did with some of them. But imagine if there was an organized structure there for almost like a hip hop university for these kids to go to and find these mentors to understand the history of rap, how to rap, what bars are. Some kids. Yeah,
but we got to get out of the mindset. But here's what I'm saying, and I know right now I'm speaking for the South. You know, I'm speaking through that filter, but I'm saying here's where we got to start. Here's where we got to stop this shit. Mentor may be the wrong word now. Just like it from when we was coming up, maybe it was maybe the word was fresh. Or you look fresh, though. You know, or you dope.
Right.
We need to be really getting in tune with our children, our nephews, our nieces, and how they speak. Once again, going back to the language factor, because things do get lost in translation. People do feel like you're suspect if you don't speak the language, you don't know the code, because going back to historical bullshit, that's all that's been available to us. We know the code because it's been used against us.
That's
We
true.
know the code language.
That's true. That's
It's
true.
being used against us. Oh, he's
Real
saying
talk.
that. They're saying that. Okay, we
Right.
get it. But what about the code of within our family? And
right.
and understanding that codes may change. Not because this is the new thing, but because they need to change. The
Right.
sun ain't gonna shine the way it's always been forever. It's gonna
Right.
change. The
Right.
earth ain't gonna be what it is for us forever. It's gonna change. Like things
For real.
change in life. We need to be adaptable so that we don't die in the mind before we even hit the grave. Like a lot of these kids are depending on us to preserve our youth too. Like we
Right.
tell them we're old. We told them we don't get them. We told them we're not hip anymore. We shun their mistakes and hide our own.
Right.
So a lot of this stuff needs to be perceived or talked about in a better way to be more effective. I'm not
Right,
saying
right.
that what you're saying is not an answer. It just needs to be a part of a more broader answer.
Right. No,
That we need to do that and
And
this
that.
too.
and then some. Right. I agree.
Because our peoples, our children, they're depending on that.
Right.
And I see the divide. We automatically tell them half the time we don't get you before we even start the conversation about what we meant.
Right.
And we don't show them that we're proud of being a kid too. We show them how proud we are being an adult, and they know it's a fucking lie. We can't stand being
Right.
an adult. That's one more minute closer to death. I met you what,
Real.
2 hours ago? And
Right.
I know you ain't gonna tell me not one motherfucking minute how you're proud of being this person as an
Right.
adult or just
Right.
step to. But you are proud of the wisdom that you have. But you can possess wisdom and still be a child. Children have wisdom too.
Right. Yo, it's funny you say that's one of the things that me and Paul always clown about. We always laugh at how we're still the same kids that we were
Right.
30 years ago. We get together.
That shit is
like,
dope.
We know when we're going to work on something, we know we have to allot at least a good 45 minutes initially just to connect and bug out. Because we're going to bug
Right.
out for the first hour before we even start any work. We're going to giggle. We're going to laugh about old times, all that.
Right.
Okay. Oh, word family. Okay, cool. Brian. Okay, yeah, see. That's real shit. Qasim just shouted at Paul Lee. Wow, bro. Oh, okay. What's up, family?
Man,
Yeah,
bro, we're
I
all
ain't catch you by-
connected, man.
I ain't catch you by the picture, family. Yeah, no doubt.
We're all
Oh, that's
connected,
crazy.
man. We're all connected. This is why I say, man, like everything that you was dropping, there's no age to that.
Nah.
You just dropping some music on their heads.
Right.
We have to be better stewards of our age, just like
Right.
we expect the kids to be better stewards of their age.
Right.
And I think there's a divide in why we're not being more efficient than we should be at this
Right.
point of the fucking chapter.
Right.
You know, we're still clashing against one another for no fucking reason. And I refuse to believe that I'm my parent now. Because I remember my parents saying, like, yo, stop playing that jungle music. Right? Like, come on, really? Like I get it. I know why you playing this shit. We should be that people.
Yeah, I'm my dad, definitely, except in that way. Except musically.
Right, like no, I'll
But I
give
am
you
my
everything
dad,
else.
for sure.
I'll give you everything else.
Right.
But what I'm not gonna give you is this thing of all it's called hip hop, because
Right.
I get it. The music was based on rebellion.
Right.
I get why you're rebelling.
Right.
In fact, I agree with your rebellion. Like fuck
Right.
me, fucking
Right.
come up with a new way.
Right.
Impress the shit out of me, man. Come up with a new way
No
of
doubt.
rebelling.
No doubt.
I want that. but I just think there's a huge divide in the idea of what it is to be you, and I want to just kind of go towards our last discussion of the night because I know your battery's dying.
Yeah, I'm on 7%.
7%. But what say you about the idea of where hip hop is going to be today and tomorrow, given that the furniture done moved? What do you feel like when the furniture stops moving? Do you feel okay with where we're at? Are you hopeful? Or,
Oh yeah, I'm definitely hopeful. Definitely, bro. Definitely.
Okay, good.
You know why I'm hopeful? Because I'm still breathing. So as long as I'm breathing, and others in my community like you and Paul and everybody we mentioned, the Poes, the Prince, you know what I'm saying, the Pharaohs and everybody, the Royce the 5 9s, like I'm hopeful because we're still here. So as long as we're breathing, we can contribute. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Kwasi, you funny word. We super connected, baby.
Right,
So,
right.
real. But
Right.
no, for real though, we are, as long as we're still here, we have the opportunity to give as much as we can to make sure that wherever it goes in a dope direction. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And God forbid none of us are here. I still trust that the entity itself, known as hip hop, like you said, it's like it's its own thing. You know what I'm saying? That
Right.
the entity itself will just regenerate itself regardless throughout
I've never read any text that didn't have some sort of comedy to it, whether it's been the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, and that fear was like a place to live in which your safety was better than the alternative, which the alternative was hope, faith, love, and knowing. Like,
right.
some of these things we can't explain in one show, but I know what you're saying, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I think hip hop is universal. It's hip hop. Hip hop is one of those places in which, if you know what hip hop is, no one can ever tell you don't know how to love.
Right.
Hip hop is the reminder of love.
Right.
Hip hop is the reminder of what it is to forgive, because
That's right.
most of our hip hop story is rags to riches.
Right.
Hip hop is a place in which there is emotion lives, because
Right.
we're, throughout some of the greatest albums ever made, there was emotion put behind all of it. Hip hop is logical,
Yeah.
because if you add hip hop plus something else, it multiplies,
Right.
and we all interpret it. Because why? Because hip hop is the voice of the voiceless. It allows people to have a space in which the world tells them they don't exist. So, I want to say thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I know.
Man. Thank you, bro. For real.
I know. You probably get calls from people all the time. I know this probably wasn't as orthodox as maybe some other people, but I know I can speak for Orlando. We appreciate hip hop. We love it the same way you do, even though we weren't the birthplace. But this is a place for hip hop as well. And anytime you close by, do not forget to stop by Orlando, bro.
Definitely, man.
We're a big
Definitely.
city, and we support our hip hop,
I
and we
appreciate it.
feel our hip hop, bro.
Definitely,
So,
bro. Yo, man,
and
Luis, mi gente. You know what I'm saying? Yo, mi familia, bro. For real.
familia, brother, you already know. You already
You know
know,
what I'm
bro.
saying? I appreciate it, bro. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to people. I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story. You know what I mean? I really do, man. I appreciate to be accepted onto the platform at an early stage and grow with the platform. to shout out Orlando, New York, Jamaica, Queens, Brooklyn, Amityville, Shaolin, everywhere, man. The A, you know what I'm saying? Everywhere.
Right.
LA, every hip hop is everywhere. So just being able to shout everybody out is amazing, man. To be able to tell my story, I appreciate it. And anytime I get something popping, you know what I mean? I'll definitely bring you in if I can. And if I got something released, I'll send it to you first so you know about it. You know what I mean? And
Well, you're always welcome on the show. I like I said, you're fucking you vibe like me, so I might just call you up on some standby shit. Like,
holla,
yo,
bro.
do you want to talk about current events or something?
Yo, holla,
like,
man.
like I mean, like I said, bro. You know, it's about our people talking and conversating and actually really just finally getting in the idea of sharing.
Yo, for real. And to everybody in the chat, I appreciate y'all hanging with us. You know what I mean? Y'all hung out with us for a few hours. I really appreciate that. You know what I mean? My man Born Nice, Hasim, Benjamin, Stephanie, Bridget, everybody that was in the chat, John P, everybody that came through. I appreciate that. You know what I mean? I really do, man. Like we don't me and Lewis don't take this lightly. Trust me when I tell you. You know what I mean? Because we just trying to give whatever we have to y'all. So the fact that y'all came and spent time with us is a blessing on our behalf as well. So
right, and two black men just talking about this thing of ours from two sides of the earth. I think it's just like I said, it's always a good day when we could talk about things retrospectively and from a contemporary standpoint where we're going moving forward. We need that. We need more of it. There's not enough of it. Like there's not enough shoes, and there's not enough cars. There's not enough vans.
No doubt.
We need more of all. We need more of it.
No doubt.
You're always welcome back on the show, my brother.
Appreciate it, bro.
I love what you're doing, man. Continue to do it. Continue to keep us updated about what you're doing, and we got you, bro. Orlando's behind you. We're rooting for you, bro.
Oh man, thank you, man. That's big, bro. That's big.
All right.
For real, bro. Shout out to Orlando, baby.
Let's go.
Orlando, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. Give it up for the legendary Don New motherfucking Kirk. Let's go. Give it up. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
Man, I love all y'all, man. Thank you for joining us tonight. I feel like, man, you know, hip hop is a better place when we could talk to each other in a real way. And this is one of those moments where you take two strangers and you put them in the room and you're talking about some hip hop. I think that's a beautiful thing. Shout out to all my peoples in the ORL. You know what I represent, man. It's the OR motherfucking L, Orlando. Shout out to all my peoples abroad. We are talking to each other as human beings. Who knew that was the way to do something a little bit different? Shout out to everybody on the check-in. We love y'all, man. We love y'all support. If you can have any time, please share with your friends. Please let them know that this is what we're doing in Orlando, that we love hip-hop just like any other Mecca in the fucking country. We appreciate hip-hop. We're a part of the story, and I can't tell my story unless I'm telling yours. So this is what we're doing, man. News to y'all. It was news to me, too, because I didn't expect to be doing this neither. This is what hip-hop does. It tells you where to go, and it's up to you whether you go there or not. I chose to go where I'm going right now because we need it. Shout out to old crazy-ass Brian Bloom on the comments going crazy. We love you too, brother. I love y'all, man. I love y'all. This is why we do it, because we need this. All right? So, once again, we'll see you tomorrow with my brother from another mother, Raz motherfucking Kaz out of LA, telling his story about how he came into hip-hop. Love y'all, man. If you know somebody that is struggling right now, that can't seem to make it. Forgive them and give them a hug. Talk to them. Show them some love. Do not alienate them because they're not at the level you are right now. This is about love in all of its splendor. Please share the message of hip hop, which is, it's just the news, man. It's just what's going on these streets. It's cold and it's warm. Shout out to all y'all. Sound of Orlando show. Let's go.
Live on stage, the sound.
Up Orlando.
So, is they ready? The sound.
Up